Chapter 101. The evening wound down, and the pair found themselves standing on the restaurant's balcony, looking over the expansive city beneath them. The twinkling lights mirrored the vast expanse of the star-studded sky above, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. "It's fascinating," Canary mused, "how the world below appears so peaceful, so serene from up here, when in reality, it's anything but." Haruto followed her gaze, taking in the view. "It's all about perspectives. From this height, individual problems seem so small, almost non-existent." As they conversed, enjoying the ambience and the drinks in their hands, Haruto-san sensed a presence that made his demeanor shift, albeit subtly. He didn't need to turn around to know who was approaching from behind, his senses providing him with all the information he needed. The voice that broke their conversation was cheerful, dripping with a brand of amiability that most found unnerving. "King Haruto, turning the city upside down and then having a date with such a beautiful woman. Truly, only you could manage such feats." Without turning, Haruto's voice carried its usual calmness. "Mr. Pariston." Pariston Hill, the vice-chairman of the Hunter Association, stepped into their line of sight, his grin unabated. His golden blonde hair shimmered in the ambient light, contrasting starkly with his sharp red tie. His suit was perfectly tailored, much like Haruto's, but where Haruto exuded quiet authority, Pariston radiated a mix of mischief and veiled intentions. Beside him stood a striking woman with cascading black hair and piercing blue eyes. Her long evening gown, a shimmering silver, complemented Pariston's attire. She radiated grace and danger in equal measure. To rid the United States of Suharto of its mafia, a task our association found quite troublesome. "I must thank you," Pariston mused. Finally giving Pariston his attention, Haruto turned, his eyes assessing the man before him. "Are you here to thank me, or gauge my intentions?" Pariston's smile never wavered. "Perhaps a bit of both, but mainly to extend an invitation." Haruto glanced at the woman next to Pariston, raising an eyebrow in silent inquiry. Canary subtly positioned herself closer to Haruto, a silent display of solidarity. "This," Pariston motioned to the woman, "is Celine, a fellow hunter and my associate for the evening." Celine inclined her head, her blue eyes assessing Haruto with curiosity. "It's an honor to meet the famed king of the Meteor Kingdom." Haruto's gaze locked onto Pariston, his posture unchanged but the atmosphere around him noticeably different. A weighty silence blanketed the balcony, pressing down on everyone present. The city lights below seemed to dim ever so slightly, as though respecting the gravity of the moment. "I don't play games," Haruto began, his voice low yet resonant, each word calculated and intentional. "And I especially don't appreciate my words being disregarded. When the Meteor Kingdom declared that every citizen is under our protection, it wasn't a mere proclamation, it was a binding decree. Just as I stood against the world when my kingdom went unrecognized, I'll stand once more. And any who choose to challenge that declaration will find themselves as adversaries of the Meteor Kingdom." The tension was palpable, the night's gentle breeze suddenly feeling chilling. Pariston's ever-present grin didn't falter, but the overbearing force of Haruto's nen was unmistakable. It was as if an invisible wall had risen around Haruto, emphasizing his dominion and authority. While Pariston was known for his ability to mask his emotions, the sheer pressure of Haruto's nen was hard to ignore. The playful mischief in his eyes was momentarily overshadowed by a flicker of unease. Beside him, Celine began to tremble. Even though her aura was formidable, standing amidst this confrontation was like a deer caught in headlights. The strength she exuded moments ago seemed fragile, her confidence shaken. Pariston, sensing her distress, subtly tightened his grip around her, offering silent support. Canary, sensing the escalating tension, subtly maneuvered herself between Haruto and the visitors, her eyes sharply focused on Celine. The message was clear, any threat towards Haruto would not be tolerated. Pariston, attempting to regain control of the situation, took a deep breath, his smile regaining some of its original vivacity. "Your passion for your kingdom is admirable, King Haruto. My apologies for any misunderstandings." Haruto's stare was unwavering, his response devoid of emotion. No misunderstandings. Only clarifications. A weighty pause ensued. It felt like hours had passed, but in reality, mere seconds had ticked by. The balance had been tipped, and the power dynamics on display were clear to all present. Attempting to steer the conversation away from dangerous territory, Celine interjected, her voice quivering but determined. The Hunter Association has always been neutral, King Haruto. We do not wish to challenge the Meteor Kingdom's sovereignty. Haruto turned his attention to her, his expression unreadable. Then ensure your actions align with your words. Neutrality is respected, but betrayal is not forgotten. Celine nodded, swallowing hard. Understood. Haruto, deciding the conversation had served its purpose, inclined his head slightly, a clear dismissal. Enjoy your evening, Vice Chairman, Miss Celine. Pariston, sensing it was time to make a graceful exit, nodded, his smile returning, albeit less vibrant. Always a pleasure, King Haruto. Until next time. With that, Pariston and Celine departed, leaving behind an atmosphere thick with unsaid words and potent energy. Once they were gone, Canary let out a sigh, her shoulders dropping as she released the tension. That was intense, she murmured. Haruto, always the composed figure, nodded. It was necessary. The Hunter Association needs to know where we stand. After their departure, the duo turned to look at the sprawling city lights once more. The vast expanse of twinkling lights painted a serene picture, starkly contrasting the intense exchange from moments ago. Silence hung between them, but it wasn't the tense quietude from earlier, it was more contemplative, the kind of quiet that speaks of shared experiences and unspoken understanding. Canary leaned into Haruto, the weight of the world momentarily lifting from her shoulders. Haruto, feeling the subtle shift, gently encircled her waist with his arm, pulling her close. Canary nestled comfortably against him, her back to his chest. They stood like that, two silhouettes bathed in the soft glow of city lights, momentarily lost in the embrace. With the vast expanse of the city unfolding beneath them, Haruto and Canary's proximity blurred the line between personal space and intimacy. The warmth emanating from him, combined with the cool evening breeze, wrapped Canary in a cocoon of comfort. It was a perfect balance, mirroring their unique dynamic. Canary broke the silence, her voice tinged with vulnerability. I sometimes wonder if our paths would have crossed, even if fate hadn't intervened that day when we first met. Haruto turned to face her, the soft ambient light illuminating his features in a way that added depth to his contemplative gaze. Fate, destiny, whatever one might call it, our paths did cross, Canary. And that's what matters. She looked up, her gray eyes meeting his violet ones. The distance between them seemed to shrink as they stood there, lost in a moment that felt detached from the world around them. Their faces were mere inches apart now, the weight of their shared history and the potential of their future pressing down on them. It was a turning point, a moment poised on the precipice of change. Haruto leaned in, his breath mingling with hers. Canary's eyes fluttered closed as she tilted her face up to meet his. Their lips brushed together tentatively, a soft exploration that was more a question than an assertion. The world around them faded as the space between their lips vanished, their kiss deepening. It was gentle and hesitant, a blending of two souls seeking solace and understanding in each other. The intensity of the moment, combined with the soft lull of the city sounds below, wrapped them in a cocoon of intimacy. The kiss broke naturally, a soft sigh escaping Canary's lips. Haruto rested his forehead against hers, their breaths intermingling, the afterglow of their shared moment evident in their slightly flushed faces. They pulled apart, but the distance was only physical. Their eyes held a promise, a silent understanding that while the path ahead might be uncertain, they'd face it together. Canary's voice, softer now, broke the momentary silence. I never imagined we'd be here, in this moment. Haruto's response was a whisper, filled with genuine emotion. Neither did I, but sometimes life surprises us in the most unexpected ways. She nestled against him, their bodies fitting together seamlessly. They remained like that, two souls wrapped up in each other, As the night deepened and the city lights continued to shimmer below. Wait. Sorry, quick interruption. I wasn't sure if I should leave this in or not. But chapter 102 to 104 is rated R18. You have been warned. Chapter 102. From the zenith of the towering skyscraper, the journey to their palace was nearly instantaneous when Haruto unleashed his full speed. As a streak of green ripped through the night, every nin master in the vicinity could sense the surge in energy. The night's embrace was disrupted momentarily, replaced by the fervor of two souls intertwined in destiny. When they materialized in Haruto's chamber, Canary was momentarily disoriented by the sheer speed of their travel. Her surroundings gradually came into focus, the lavish furnishings, the drapes that danced lightly with the night breeze, and Haruto, his very aura filling the room with a palpable intensity. Without a word, he stepped closer, the distance between them evaporating as quickly as their journey had been. The tension in the air was palpable, the weight of the evening's events mixed with the raw emotion of the moment. The charged atmosphere was only heightened by their closeness. Their eyes met, and in that gaze, a world of emotions swirled: desire, understanding, hesitation, and longing. The weight of their shared history, combined with the gravity of the present moment, pulled them inexorably closer. He bridged the gap between them, capturing her lips in a searing kiss. This wasn't the gentle exploration of their earlier encounter. This was raw, filled with the pent-up emotions of the night, and the unspoken feelings that had been simmering between them for longer than either would admit. Canary's hands found their way to his hair, tangling in the soft green strands, as Haruto's hands settled on her waist, pulling her closer. The room, filled with the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through the open balcony doors, bore witness to a moment of pure, unadulterated connection. As the intensity of their embrace grew, Canary's back pressed against the soft fabric of the luxurious chaise longue behind her. Haruto's hand traced a fiery path up her arm, sending shivers down her spine. The sound of their rapid breathing echoed in the vast chamber, punctuated only by soft murmurs and sighs. "Haruto," Canary whispered, her voice catching in her throat, her hands exploring the contours of his back, urging him closer. His reply was a soft growl, his fingers tangling in her hair, tilting her head back to access the sensitive skin of her neck. The sensation of his lips there, coupled with the barely restrained power she could feel emanating from him, left her breathless. Haruto pulled back, gazing into her eyes, the depths of his feelings laid bare for her to see. "Canary," he murmured, the weight of his emotions giving his voice a husky quality, "do you know how long I've wanted this?" She reached up, tracing the outline of his lips with her fingers. "Show me," she replied, her voice filled with a mix of vulnerability and desire. As the distance between their lips vanished, the world seemed to blur around them. Haruto's hands traced the curve of her spine, pulling her closer until no space remained between their bodies. They fell back onto the bed, the soft silken sheets enveloping them as their kisses grew more fervent. With each stolen moment, they explored and discovered one another, their actions speaking louder than words ever could. The energy between them crackled, a storm of passion that threatened to consume them both. Haruto paused, his gaze searching Canary's. "Are you sure?" he asked, a hint of uncertainty marring his usually composed demeanor. Canary nodded, a smile touching her lips. "I've never been more certain of anything." Their lips met again, the world outside forgotten, as he started to undress her, kissing her neck. Their movements were sure and steady, as they explored the terrain of each other's bodies. The sensation of his lips on her skin was the only connection to the outside world that Canary required. She felt as though she were floating, the only anchor the weight of his body holding her in place. The intensity between them was heightened by the mystery of the past moments, by the hunger for more. As his lips continued to explore her body, the only thing Canary wanted was to feel him inside of her. "Haruto," Canary moaned, her hands tangling in his hair, "please." He rose up so that he could look into her eyes. In that moment, as the two looked at each other, the world around them vanished, leaving only the two of them. The fabric tatters under his hand, revealing soft, dark skin. The air stirred, the sheer curtains rustling as they moved, the fabric dancing across her body. His lips found the curve of her neck, the unruly mane of green hair tickling her skin. His hand trailed down to the curve of her body, the side of his warm palm settling between her breasts. His lips found the hollow of her neck, his breath hot against her skin. She let out a quiet sigh, her body relaxing into the soft mattress behind her. He worked his way down across her collarbone and found her peaked nipples, the tips standing out against the lace of her bra. She arched her back, a soft moan escaping her lips as he found her breast, the light touch sending a shiver through her body. "Haruto," she whispered, an arch tone to her voice. "Canary," he breathed, his voice filled with her heat and desire. Hooking his fingers under the straps, Haruto pulled them off her shoulders, letting the fabric of her bra fall away. He peered down at the sight before him, seeing the inviting sight of her hardened nipple. His tongue found the tip, lapping at it gently, running along the edge of the areola. She let out a breathless moan as he settled in, lavishing the tip with soft, wet strokes. Her right hand tangled in his hair, her body writhing underneath him in pleasure. She had never been touched like this, she had been with someone who made her feel so wanted. As he continued to give her nipple his attention, his hand traced down her body, reaching for the rest of her dress. Canary's head fell back, her eyes closed as she surrendered to the sensation of his lips on her skin. Chapter 103. His hands traced down, reaching the curve of her waist. The fabric was soft and smooth, the undergarment feeling delicate to the touch. His hands passed the mound of her hips, exploring the sensitive skin of her inner thigh. She moaned louder as his lips found the curve of her neck, his hot breath sending a shiver through her body. His lips traced a fiery path down her chest, his hands reaching out to undo the clasp of her bra. He felt her body tense as he unhooked the clasp of her bra. The feeling of her soft breast in his hand was more than enough to push him over the edge, his fingers teasing her nipple as his lips found hers in a fierce kiss. She moaned louder as he continued to tease her nipple, his hands reaching down to her underwear. His hands tangled in her hair, running his fingers through her soft strands. As her lips met his, she could taste the desire she felt in him. As he flicked at her nipple, he could feel her body arching up towards him, her hands exploring the contours of his back. In a swift motion, he pulled his shirt over his head, the feeling of skin against skin leaving a warm sensation in their wake. She felt the heat of his chest, the temperature only accentuated by the thin sheen of sweat that had settled on his body. His chest was muscled, firm and inviting. He nuzzled into her neck as she ran her hands over his smooth skin. A low moan emanated from her lips as she felt his teeth graze against her neck, his tongue leaving a wet trail along her skin. "Haruto," she murmured, her voice filled with pleasure. Her body was on fire, she wanted this more than anything. There was no hesitation, no mistake in the moment, only the pure and uncensored desire. He gently pushed her back onto the bed, his hands tangling in her hair. She felt his body settle over hers, the heat of his skin pressed against her. She handled quick to let him lay her down, her hands sliding around his neck, pulling him closer. His lips found hers, the soft touch of his skin against hers sending shivers down her spine. Her heart hammered against her chest, the sound of her heartbeat mixing with the sound of his. He reached down, his fingers brushing along her cheek, before tangling in her hair, pulling her closer. She took a deep breath as their lips met, her body relaxing as she surrendered to the passion of the moment. Haruto let his hand reach between her legs. Her wet passion greeted him. "Canary," he intoned, his voice full of desire. His fingers traced along the side of her leg, leaving a trail of goosebumps in their wake. Her body leaned into his touch, her fingers reaching out to tangle in his hair. The feeling of his weight against hers was nothing she was used to, the sense of his physicality overwhelming her senses. His lips found her neck, a trail of kisses leaving a burning sensation in its wake. She sighed softly, her hands reaching up to tangle in his hair. "Haruto," she whispered, her voice full of breathless desire. He ignored her pleas, and kissed downward, his goal clear, scouted by his fingers. Her body tensed, caught in the sensations that were washing over her. Her body felt like it was on fire, the heat radiating from her core. She felt his fingers slip inside of her panties, his hand far more confident than she was. She gasped as he traced his fingers over her intimate parts, the sensation of his touch leaving her breathless. She could feel the heat radiating from his body. She found herself moaning as he continued to touch her, her body writhing beneath him. As Haruto touched her, she continued to moan, his fingers gently exploring her most intimate of places. Her body was overwhelmed with sensation, her mind filled with the feelings washing over her. She could feel her wetness dripping against his fingers, the delicate fabric of her panties becoming soaked. The feeling of her panties becoming wetter left a warm sensation in its wake, her body writhing in pleasure. She felt as though her world had shrunk to the sensations that were washing her. Her body tensed, caught in the sensations that were washing over her. Her body felt like it was on fire, the heat radiating from her core. Haruto, she breathed, his name on her lips. She felt his fingers teasing her underwear, slipping through the fabric. His lips found her neck, leaving a trail of kisses across her skin. He could feel her warm skin against the tips of his fingers, the sensation of her wetness against his fingertips. Her fingers reached out, tangled in his hair, as she pulled him closer, her mouth moving against his neck. She could feel his breath against her skin, the sensation heightened by the feeling of his lips against her nipples only for a brief moment, then moving downward, towards her core. She moaned louder as she felt the heat of his breath near her most intimate place. She felt his fingers move the fabric of her underwear aside, his mouth reaching for her wetness. When he finally reached her, she was dripping wet. She arched her head against her pillow, her hands running through his hair. She moaned louder as she felt his fingers against her, his tongue flicking against the sensitive nub of her. She felt her body tense, her fingers tangling in his hair. Haruto's tongue tasted her honey, lapping at her entrance and nub. She could feel his tongue teasing her entrance, lapping at her like a delicate flower. The feeling of his tongue against her made her arch her back against her bed, her body writhing in pleasure. Her fingers tangled in her sheets, pulling at the thin material. Her arms trapped against her body, she could feel the pressure building in her core, her toes curling from the sensation. His fingers traced her hips, gently teasing her as he continued to taste her. Her body squirmed under him, her hands running through his hair. She could feel his grip, strong and confident, guiding her into the sensations that were washing over her. His hands continued to trace her hips, his tongue flicking against her entrance. Her body seemed to tremble in pleasure, her fingers digging into the sheets of her bed. Her body was flushed, goosebumps rising on her skin. She grabbed his hair tighter, as she felt the pressure reach its peak, her body arched. Her moans echoed around their room. Chapter 104. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the sensation of his mouth against her. She could feel her body tensing, her hands gripping the sheets under her. His fingers slid inside of her, finding the rhythm that had her body tightening around him, her hips bucking against his tongue. "Haruto," she whispered, her voice falling to a throaty hiss. She could feel her body tensing, her fingers tangling in his hair. She could feel her core tightening around his fingers. Her eyes squeezed tightly shut, as she ride wave after wave of orgasm. She sighed, her body still relishing the feeling of being in his embrace. She felt his lips tracing a warm path down her chest, his fingers leaving a warm sensation in their wake. She moaned softly as she felt his weight against her. Soon, his lips were on his, sharing the honey with her. She devoured his lips, riding on her orgasm, as his cock pressed against her entrance. His kiss was hungrier, as he felt the warm sensation of her honey against his lips. He could taste her passion, the sweetness of her core. His mind was filled with thoughts of her, he couldn't hold back. She felt his cock press against her, and she moaned into his kiss. Her tongue met his, the taste of her honey filling her mouth. She could feel the warmth of his skin against hers, his body covering hers. Her arms wrapped tightly around him, pulling him closer to her. His cock slid inside of her, his hands trailing along her hips. A low grunt emitted from his lips as he felt the warmth of her enveloping him. She gasped, her body tensing around him, as she felt his thickness inside of her. His cock slid deeper inside of her, stretching her. She moaned into his kiss, as his cock slid deeper inside of her. She felt her body tense around him, her toes curling in pleasure. His kisses along her neck were gentle, the feeling of his warmth overwhelming. She let out a soft moan as she felt him sliding deeper inside of her body relaxing around him. His lips trailed kisses along her skin, emitting a throaty growl. With each thrust, she could feel herself being pushed further and further. She moaned louder as he filled her, her moans filling the room. She could feel her body tensing, her fingers digging into his skin. "Haruto, harder," she whispered, her voice full of desire. He gripped her waist, increasing his rhythm. She moaned louder, as he filled her, her body shaking with pleasure. Her arms tight around him, he buried his head against her neck. She could feel his warmth against her skin, his lips trailing kisses along her neck. His hands slid along her back, holding her close. He pulled her closer, her thighs wrapping around him. She felt his cock pulse inside of her core tightening around. She felt her orgasm slowly building again, her body shaking in pleasure. Her moans echoed in their room, as her fingers tightened around his skin. The pressure in her core continued to build, until she finally reached her peak. She cried out as she felt her body tensing, the warmth spreading through her entire body. Her fingers ran through his hair, as she moaned, her voice muffled by his lips. Feeling her body tighten around him, he groaned. He could feel himself losing himself in her, his toes curling. He buried himself as deep as he could, as her juices spilling over him. He leaned over her, his weight resting against her. She could feel his heart beating against her chest, a softness filling her heart. Haruto too felt he was approaching his limit. She could feel the warmth spreading through her body trembling against him. She drew him closer to her, as he continued to fill her. She felt her body shuddering, the waves of pleasure washing over her. He leaned against her, his breath heavy against her neck. She could feel the warmth spreading through her body still trembling with pleasure. They lay in each other's embrace, their heartbeat slowing. Their bodies still filled with warmth. He kissed her neck. The morning sun streamed through the gossamer curtains, casting a golden hue over the room. Canary stirred, her eyes fluttering open to find herself nestled in Haruto's embrace. She looked up to find him already awake, his violet eyes studying her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice still husky from sleep. Haruto tightened his hold on her, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Morning," he replied, his voice filled with warmth. The serenity of the morning was punctuated only by the distant chirping of birds and the gentle rustle of silk sheets. Canary lay wrapped up in Haruto's embrace, their breathing synchronized in the rhythmic cadence of contentment. The remnants of last night's passions had given way to a peaceful lull, both of them wrapped up in the cocoon of each other's warmth. Canary's fingers lazily traced circles on Haruto's chest, her touch light but filled with emotion. She shifted slightly, looking up to meet his gaze, her large gray eyes reflecting a deep contentment. The look he returned was one of raw vulnerability, a sight rare for the usually stoic and composed king. Haruto's fingers brushed a stray strand of her curly dark purple hair behind her ear, his touch lingering on her skin. "I didn't expect," he began, struggling for words. Canary smiled gently, understanding his sentiments even without a complete sentence. "Neither did I," she whispered, pressing her lips to his chest, feeling his heartbeat quicken beneath her touch. For a long moment, they simply lay there, lost in each other's embrace, allowing the world to fade away. The weight of their responsibilities and the challenges that awaited them outside these walls seemed distant, overshadowed by the raw intimacy of the present. Chapter 105. The soft clinking of porcelain and the aroma of freshly brewed tea filled the breakfast hall. As Haruto and Canary entered, they were greeted by Kotopi and Maki, already seated at the long wooden table laden with an assortment of breakfast items. Kotopi, always a man of few words, simply nodded at their arrival. His expression was neutral, but there was a twinkle in his eyes, perhaps sensing the shift in dynamics between Haruto and Canary. Maki's reaction was less reserved. Her eyes darted between the two, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "You two seem different this morning," she teased, taking a sip of her tea. Canary's cheeks tinted a soft pink, her eyes darting downward to hide her embarrassment. Haruto, on the other hand, seemed unperturbed. He took his seat at the head of the table, his posture straight, his movements measured. Canary settled beside him, the warmth from their shared morning still palpable between them. She reached for a piece of toast, her fingers brushing against Haruto's momentarily. It was a fleeting touch, but it carried the weight of unspoken sentiments. Observing Canary's attempt to get her breakfast, Haruto's fingers gracefully met hers. Without a word, he took the toast from the plate, spreading butter and jam with deliberate care, the way she had always preferred. His fingers worked skillfully, reflecting a surprising familiarity with such a simple task, one that he might not have often performed himself. Placing the toast back onto her plate, he looked at her, and there was a gentle challenge in his eyes, daring her to make something of his gesture. Canary met his gaze, a soft smile touching her lips. "Thank you," she murmured, the warmth in her voice evident. The quiet intimacy of the moment was in contrast to the bustling atmosphere of the breakfast hall. Maki, observing their interactions, couldn't resist a playful jab. "Should I expect breakfast in bed tomorrow, Haruto?" she quipped, a mischievous gleam in her eyes. Haruto merely smirked, not rising to the bait. Instead, he reached for a bowl of fruit, plucking a grape. Before he could pop it into his mouth, Canary swiftly took it from him, expertly peeling the skin off and handing it back. It was a small act, one might even say unnecessary, but in that exchange lay years of understanding and shared moments. Courtopy, ever the silent observer, took in the scene with mild amusement, continuing with his meal. The man didn't speak much, but his sharp eyes missed little. Amid the light chatter, Haruto's demeanor never faltered. His every move, every glance held an understated authority. Even in such casual settings, his kingly aura was evident, not in the way he demanded attention, but in the natural way others deferred to him. Maki, ever the provocateur, continued, "It's nice, you know, seeing you two like this. Almost like a king and his queen." She winked at Canary, who blushed but didn't shy away. Haruto merely shot Maki a look, one that held a hint of a warning but was devoid of real malice. The atmosphere in the breakfast hall was light, with the soft chirping of birds and the distant hum of palace life providing a soothing backdrop. Haruto's every action, from the way he sipped his tea to how he held his silverware, was marked by a quiet authority. Canary, seated beside him, often stole glances his way, her heart warmed by the depth of their connection. As the group enjoyed their morning reprieve, a servant stepped into the hall, her footsteps echoing lightly on the marble floors. She gave a respectful bow, her eyes never rising to meet Haruto's, a testament to the respect he commanded in the palace. "King Haruto," she began, her voice clear but slightly hesitant, "a guest wishes to speak with you. We tried to send her away, but she insists it's crucial and refuses to leave." Haruto raised an eyebrow, pausing in his actions. His gaze remained steady, giving nothing away. Canary, sensing the change in his demeanor, placed a gentle hand on his arm, seeking to comfort him. Maki, always one to be curious, leaned forward slightly. "Who is she?" she mused, her tone light, but the underlying seriousness evident. The servant hesitated for a moment before replying. "She said her name is Neon Nostrade. She didn't say anything else. She looks weak and fragile, so we didn't know if we should use force." Hearing the name, Maki's eyes lit up with recognition. "Bring her in," she instructed the servant, a tone of curiosity threading her voice. The servant nodded, giving a small bow, and swiftly exited the room. As the door closed behind her, Maki turned to Haruto, her gaze thoughtful. "I came across Neon Nostrade while gathering information on the Mafia," she began. "They say she's a seer. Many of the Mafia bosses swear by her predictions, shaping their lives around them. I found it peculiar when they missed their own auction last night. It's probably related to her." Haruto leaned back in his chair, processing the information. His features remained neutral, but there was a hint of intrigue in his eyes. "A seer, you say? In the underground world, that's a title not given lightly." Canary looked between Maki and Haruto, her brows furrowed in thought. "So, She's either a Nen master, or she's just a natural talent unaware of her own potential. Cortleby, who had been silent until now, simply sipped his tea, his eyes sharp and observant. He rarely offered his opinions unless explicitly prompted. The soft sound of footsteps approached, growing louder with each passing second. The double doors to the breakfast hall opened, revealing the servant from before. Behind her trailed a young girl, appearing to be in her late teens. She had a delicate frame and pale skin, her long, turquoise hair cascading down her back in soft waves. Dressed in a frilly pink dress with matching gloves and shoes, she looked like a porcelain doll. Her eyes, a soft shade of blue, darted around nervously, taking in the room's occupants. Chapter 106. Maki, ever the observant one, was the first to break the silence. "Neon nostrade, I presume?" she inquired, her tone neutral yet inviting. Neon nodded timidly, her fingers playing with the hem of her dress. "Yes, that's me. I apologize for intruding. I needed to see King Haruto." Haruto observed her silently for a moment, the weight of his gaze making her fidget even more. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm and measured. "You're here now. Speak." Taking a deep breath, Neon bowed, her azure eyes flickering with unease. "I had a vision last night," she began, her voice tremulous. She hesitated for a moment before carefully extracting a folded piece of paper from the pocket of her dress. With another bow, she presented it to Haruto. Without a word, Canary reached out and took the paper, unfolding it and reading the contents aloud for the room to hear. "Amidst the shadows, a clandestine market thrives, where dark hearts in silence scheme and connive. Upon nightfall, gather they shall, the lords of deceit, in pursuit of the elusive, their ambitions to meet. In the vale of the morrow, descends a monarch unseen. From the realm afar, his aura serene yet keen. His presence a mystery, veiled in twilight skies. A harbinger of change, beneath the moonlit skies. Amidst whispers of fate, the chains of destiny tighten. Upon the lords of shadows, fear and hope brightly lighten. As the king unveils the morrow, old reign shall cease. In his wake, lie the seeds of peril or peace. In the dance of destiny, light's fate intertwines. With the king of the veiled realm, where the star aligns. In the grasp of the unknown, destiny's dual face. A pioneer of tomorrows, or apocalypse's embrace." The room fell silent after the reading, the weight of the prediction hanging in the air. Neon's fingers continued to nervously play with the hem of her dress, waiting for someone to speak. Maki was the first to break the silence. "Intriguing," she murmured, leaning back in her chair, "your visions are renowned in the mafia world, after all. But what prompted you to bring this to us, specifically to Haruto?" Haruto met Maki's piercing gaze, his voice level as he responded, "Simple. I am in the prediction." The immediate reactions varied across the room. Maki's eyes widened in surprise, while Cortleby merely took another sip of his tea, though his gaze had intensified. Canary looked over at Haruto, her eyes filled with questions. Neon, however, looked nothing short of amazed. Her blue eyes were round with wonder as she stared at Haruto. "You figured it out so quickly. The mafia bosses have teams that try to decode my predictions. They decided to skip the auction yesterday based on it, but none could identify who this mysterious king was." Haruto offered a slight, almost amused, smile. "Your predictions are layered, but sometimes, things become clearer when you're the subject." Neon looked like she was about to say something but paused when Haruto continued, his voice softer, yet still assertive. "That alone wouldn't prompt you to seek me out. There's more, isn't there?" Shocked to her core, Neon bowed once again and handed over another piece of paper. She had never assumed the young-looking king to be so adept at reading people. "I predicted this for my guard, Baze, after the previous one. I cannot predict my own future, so my father ordered Baze to follow me everywhere, even to death, and this was her prediction." Canary once again took the paper, her voice clear and steady as she read. "In the heart of the city, where danger does lurk, guardian shadow stands tall, amidst the chaos and murk. Her duty unwavering, by the maiden's side she stays. To protect and to serve, through nights and through days. The gathering of wealth, where treachery's rife. A choice to be made, risking her very life. Should she tread into darkness, doom would be near. But a voice whispers caution, a warning so clear. To a realm unfamiliar, a beacon calls forth. Following the king, seeking true value and worth. Venturing deep into lands, where few dared to tread. She finds prosperity blooming, where others see dread. Yet in the tapestry of fate, where paths intertwine. Her journey with the veiled king, under stars that align. Choices made in the moment, to peril or praise. Decide the destiny of the guardian's days. The room seemed to absorb the gravity of the words, each individual processing the potential implications. Haruto, after a brief pause, was the first to respond. Haruto then asked, "So you're suggesting that your safety and prosperity are tied to my path?" Neon, now accustomed to Haruto's perceptiveness, simply bowed her head in acknowledgement. "Yes, your majesty. Both Baze and I believe that accompanying you ensures our well-being. Without your presence, we feel our end may be imminent. I beseech you to consider our loyalty and devotion to your cause." Haruto regarded Neon with an evaluating look. He could sense her nen, which, as he had anticipated, was raw and unrefined, but that made sense. A refined nen user would not typically be assigned the role of a mafia seer. He turned to face Canary, his trust in her evident. "Your call," he said simply. Canary smiled gently, her decision clear in her eyes. She stood, beckoning Neon to follow. "Come with me, Neon. Let's meet Baze and decide from there." Neon hesitated for a brief moment before nodding and following Canary, the weight of her fate heavy on her shoulders. Maki leaned back, arching an eyebrow. "Quite the morning you've had," she commented, her tone teasing. Cortopi merely sipped his tea, his face expressionless, though the briefest hint of a smirk played at the corner of his lips. Haruto leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant, reflecting on the turn of events. Without looking at Maki, he said, "It's not even noon, and our day has already been eventful." Maki laughed softly. "Indeed, but with you round, isn't every day an adventure?" Comment. Haruto just smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling slightly. Chapter 107. Walking out with Neon, Canary soon spotted Baze chatting with a maid in the distance. The maid looked quite flustered, likely caught off guard by Baze's forward nature. As they approached, Canary felt the ebb and flow of Baze's nen. She couldn't help but let out a small scoff. To her, trained under the rigorous standards set by Haruto, Baze's abilities felt rudimentary. In the Meteor Kingdom, her level of proficiency would barely be acknowledged. But Canary reminded herself that not everyone had the privilege of such intense training. Canary led Neon and Baze towards a secluded gazebo, away from the bustle of the palace grounds. The structure, with its intricate wooden design, stood proudly amidst a tranquil garden. Its placement seemed strategic, offering both privacy and a view of the surrounding area. As they walked, the silence was almost palpable, with only the sound of footsteps echoing on the stone pathway. Reaching the gazebo, Canary gestured for the two to sit across from her on the wooden bench. The seats were cushioned with soft fabric, hinting at the importance of the place for intimate discussions. Nervous, the duo waited for Canary to speak. The tension was palpable, and the soft rustling of the trees outside the gazebo was the only sound breaking the silence. The moments seemed to stretch, each second feeling like an eternity as Canary's gaze shifted from Baze to Neon and back again. After what felt like an eternity, but was only about 5 minutes, Canary leaned forward, her eyes sharp as they locked onto Neon. "How does your power work?" Neon hesitated, glancing at Baze for support. Her stoic face gave away no emotion, but her subtle nod urged Neon to continue. Neon explained, her voice quivering slightly from nervousness, "When I activate my ability, it takes over my arm and writes out quatrains which predict the future." Canary raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. And what do you need to do this? Neon hesitated before answering. I need a handwritten note with the name, full date of birth, and blood type of the person. If they aren't present, I need a picture of their face. Each quatrain represents a week of the current month, and events in the poem appear as metaphors. Bays, seeking to add clarity, interjected, and if the fortune is inauspicious, it will have advice to help avoid the impending misfortune. Canary leaned back, processing the information. So you can't predict your own future? That's correct, Neon replied softly, her fingers nervously playing with the hem of her dress. There was a momentary silence, during which Canary seemed lost in thought. The two women waited, the soft wind carrying the scent of blooming flowers into the gazebo. Neon looked down, anxiety evident in her posture, while Bays maintained her stoic demeanor, eyes fixed on Canary. Breaking the silence, Canary asked, how loyal is your bodyguard to you? Bays responded without hesitation, I've sworn to be by Neon's side. Canary called a maid over, her voice authoritative yet gentle. Bring me a pen and a stack of paper. The maid hurriedly complied, returning with the requested items. Canary took the pen in hand, writing down her name, birthday, and blood type on a fresh sheet. She then extended the paper to Neon, her piercing gaze meeting the young seer's. The message was clear, predict. Neon's hand twitched involuntarily, reacting to the compulsion of her ability. She placed the paper on her lap, took a deep breath, and activated her power. Her hand moved swiftly, the words flowing out in rhythmic patterns. Canary watched intently, her eyes never leaving Neon's face. The act was captivating, almost mystical, with Neon's eyes glazed over in a trance. Bays shifted uncomfortably, always on edge when Neon used her ability, especially in front of strangers. After a few minutes, the motion ceased. Neon's hand relaxed, and she blinked, coming out of her trance. Handing the paper to Canary, she swallowed nervously, awaiting her response. Canary took the paper, her gaze scanning the quatrains. She read aloud, her voice neutral. In a land of golden sand and art. With comrades, a journey did start. Trade and barter, secrets unfurled. A love discovered, as a flag unfurled. Canary flinched slightly, recognizing the references to her recent past. The love discovered, a personal secret, brought a blush to her cheeks. Canary continued. Underground depths, treasures to seek. A warrior emerged, strong, not weak. Intimate dances, love's gentle call. Two hearts intertwined, standing tall. Reading the third stanza. A gavel falls, bids rise and soar. Good sought after, legends of yore. Joining the fray, strategy and play. Four kingdoms treasure, they'll hold sway. Canary's lips curved slightly, hinting at amusement. The auction, an event they were all looking forward to, was painted in such poetic imagery. Lastly, she read. Journey's end nears, home beaconing clear. To a kingdom of meteors, they'll steer. Challenges faced, with loyalty's bond. Future uncertain, yet hope is fond. Canary set the paper down, looking up to meet Neon's anxious gaze. Impressive, she murmured. You didn't just capture events, you captured emotions. Neon let out a shaky breath, relieved. It's not something I control. It just comes out. Bays added, her voice firm, the predictions have always been accurate. And any misfortunes mentioned, if the advice is heeded, can be avoided. Canary pondered for a moment. You said you need specifics about a person to predict their future. Yet, some of these events involve others. How is that? Neon hesitated, searching for the right words. It's the connection between events. If something significant to the person whose future I'm predicting involves others, it gets woven into the quatrain. It's more about the interplay of destinies. Canary's plan was to discern Bays and Neon's intentions in the Meteor Kingdom. Testing Neon's peculiar ability would provide her with answers she sought. Initially, she had Neon draft a prediction devoid of any intent. Now, Canary was preparing to shift gears. Closing her eyes, Canary drew upon her vast experience with Nen. The art of deception was no stranger to her, especially when it involved the manipulation of Nen. She adjusted her intention, creating a duality in her psyche. On one hand, the contemplation of disposing of Neon and Baze, on the other, the idea of inviting them into the heart of the Meteor Kingdom. Handing Neon another piece of paper with her handwritten name, date of birth, and blood type, Canary instructed, "Predict again." Neon, already anxious from the first reading, hesitated. Baze placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "We've got this," she whispered. With that, Neon took a deep breath and once again activated her ability. The quill danced over the paper as it had previously, but this time, the mood was even tenser. Baze clenched her fists, ready to act if the situation went awry. Neon, as before, was lost in her trance. Minutes passed before Neon's arm finally relaxed, signaling the end of the prediction. Neon handed the paper to Canary, who began to read. The first 3 quatrains were identical to the prior reading. However, the 4th quatrain had shifted. At crossroads dark, 2 paths unfurl. One tainted in blood, the world in a twirl. The other, acceptance, a kingdom's embrace. Ease in the shadows, securing their place. Canary's eyes locked onto Neon's, searching for any indication of deceit. "Your abilities truly are extraordinary," she said, her voice cool. Neon swallowed hard. "It's as I said. I don't control it. It simply manifests." Baze interjected, "As you can see, we come with no ill intentions. We only seek understanding and a place within the kingdom." Canary stared at the quatrain for a moment longer, her fingers tapping lightly on the paper. "This quatrain. It presents 2 clear paths. It speaks of a bloody consequence if not accepted, but a smooth transition if embraced. Is this your way of warning me?" Neon responded hesitantly, "I don't control what the quatrain says, but yes. It seems to suggest that the better path is to accept and collaborate, rather than to confront." Canary nodded thoughtfully. "Your ability offers insights into events and emotions, even when you aren't directly involved. This could be beneficial for the Meteor Kingdom." Baze leaned forward, the tension evident in her posture. "So, what will it be? Are we enemies or allies?" Canary, ever the strategist, weighed the options in her mind. Finally, she sighed, "Your abilities are not to be underestimated. And while I may have reservations, it seems the fates favor an alliance." Baze let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "Thank you," she said sincerely. Neon added softly, "We won't let you down." Canary nodded, the decision made. "Very well. Welcome to the Meteor Kingdom." The weight of the moment settled in. Trusts were built, paths chosen, and destinies set into motion. Chapter 108. September 6 graced the United States of Suherto with its presence. The days leading up to it had been a whirlwind of diplomatic engagements and private soirees. Haruto, with Canary at his side, had explored the city's lavish wonders. Their dates had been a tasteful blend of discovery and intimate moments, whether it was a quiet dinner by the Suherto coast or a walk through the ancient ruins. Their connection was palpable to anyone who observed. President Haydn had requested a few meetings with Haruto, a testament to the Meteor Kingdom's growing influence. The neighboring countries' leaders, not wanting to be left behind in the grand scheme of geopolitics, had flocked to meet the young ruler, their eyes filled with a mix of respect and a hint of envy. Haruto welcomed them with his usual composed grace, each interaction further solidifying his realm's standing. As Haruto sat across from President Haydn during one of their meetings, the weight of his influence was evident. The older leader, despite his years of experience, leaned in, hanging on to every word Haruto spoke. "Haruto, your kingdom's rise has been nothing short of meteoric. We'd be wise to cultivate our ties," Haydn had noted. A slight upward curve formed on Haruto's lips. "We look forward to it, President Haydn. Collaboration is the key to prosperity." However, amidst all the political dance, the evening everyone had eagerly anticipated had finally arrived, the commencement of the Southern Peace Auction. The grand hall chosen for the event was a tapestry of opulence, glistening chandeliers casting a soft glow over antiquities and treasures waiting for their new owners. Haruto entered the venue, and the atmosphere palpably shifted. Conversations dimmed, eyes turned, and a pathway naturally formed. His entrance was silent yet commanding. Canary, looking stunning in her evening attire, walked beside him, their mutual admiration evident. They looked like a match made in the heavens. Inside the grandeur of the Southern Peace Auction Hall, Haruto and Canary made their entrance, their steps synchronized in a silent, eloquent dance. The murmurs diminished, replaced by an air of anticipation. Just behind the power pair, Maki, dressed in a sleek, crimson dress that highlighted her athletic build, moved with a purposeful grace. Her sharp eyes darted around the room, scanning for potential threats or opportunities. Kortopi, comparatively unassuming in a simple black suit, followed Maki, his long hair a contrasting shade against the formal attire. His observant nature meant he took in every detail, noting the reactions of the attendees to Haruto's entrance. As Haruto's gaze swept the room, he was met with a mixture of intrigue, admiration, and the ever-present glint of envy. Canary, bathed in the soft light, took a moment to absorb the opulence around her. The gold and crystal decor seemed almost an extension of her radiant aura, and when Haruto leaned in to whisper something, she responded with a bright, genuine laugh. The exchange drew the attention of many, a testament to their undeniable chemistry. Maki, taking a more pragmatic approach, commented, "Seems like everyone's interested in what the Meteor Kingdom brings to the table tonight." Her statement was both an observation and a subtle reminder of their position. Kortopi nodded, his words succinct, "High stakes tonight." Haruto acknowledged them with a slight nod, his eyes momentarily flitting to Canary, then back to the unfolding auction. "Let's see what they've got." The auctioneer took the stage, his voice cutting through the subtle undertones of whispered conversations. "Ladies and gentlemen, our first item tonight, a unique piece of history. A fossilized Deodorosaurus dropping." The room echoed with a mixture of intrigued murmurs and restrained chuckles. Kortopi raised an eyebrow, "That's an unusual start." Canary leaned in, her voice laced with amusement, "It might have historical value. Never underestimate the oddities people collect." Haruto's gaze remained fixed on the item, his mind racing. Every item here had potential significance, and as ruler, he had to consider the broader implications of each acquisition. Following the fossilized item, a series of rare art pieces and artifacts were presented, each with its own tale and a lore. A painting from a lost civilization, a jeweled dagger from a bygone era, and an ancient manuscript detailing forgotten rituals. The bids flowed thick and fast, each item fetching astronomical sums. But the anticipation reached its zenith when the auctioneer announced the next item. "Now, for the pièce de résistance, the legendary game, Greed Island." Whispers exploded across the hall, but what drew most gasps was the sight of the game running on a Joy-Station console, with no visible power source. A large man wielding a sledgehammer was then invited onto the stage. With a powerful swing, he slammed the weapon against the console. The crowd gasped in anticipation, but the console remained undamaged. The auctioneer, a tall woman with striking features, spoke up, "This game's power protects the console, ensuring it remains intact as long as someone is playing." Canary, her eyes widening slightly, leaned in toward Haruto, "It's not just a game, is it?" Haruto shook his head subtly. "No, it's much more than that." The woman continued, "We acquired our 7 copies of this game from a hunter named Jezari. He agreed to give them to this auction if no one cleared the game by January 1st. The auctioneer, having given attendees a moment to digest the significance of the item, began detailing the game. Greed Island is not merely a game. It's a world of its own. Those who enter its confines risk everything. Few have ever come out, and fewer still unscathed. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. This game, ladies and gentlemen, while a marvel, is also a maelstrom of perils. One must be prepared for any eventuality. As she concluded her brief overview, she announced, We shall begin the bidding at 100 million jenny. Before the words had even fully left her mouth, a voice from the back shouted, 150 million. Another quickly countered, 200 million. The figures skyrocketed as the crowd got swept up in the frenzy of bidding. Maki's eyes flitted from bidder to bidder, trying to gauge their motivations. Courtpy remained focused on the console, occasionally whispering something to Maki. Canary, her hand lightly touching Haruto's arm, murmured, the amounts increasing rapidly. Haruto, ever the poised eagle, responded, it's to be expected. But we won't be deterred. The bids kept flowing, each one larger than the last. 600 million. 700 million. 850 million. Amid the chaos, Haruto remained silent, waiting. Canary could feel the anticipation building around them. Everyone expected the young ruler to make his move. But when Chapter 109. Batara, an old man with strands of silver hair contrasting with his pale skin, stood up, making his presence known amidst the auction's frenzy. His voice cut through the din, 1.7 billion jenny. The hall went silent, the staggering amount taking everyone aback. The auctioneer, a seasoned woman, barely hid her surprise, but Batara's determination was palpable. Whispers filled the space, some filled with awe, others with envy, but all converging on the singular question, who would challenge such a bid? Haruto, however, seemed unperturbed. His calm eyes met Batara's intense gaze. Without a word, he gave a slight nod to Maki, who, understanding her cue, left her seat with a swiftness only she could achieve. As the attendees continued their whispered speculations, Haruto leaned towards Canary. That's the man from the Batara Foundation, isn't it? Canary whispered, her voice soft but laced with curiosity. Yes, Haruto replied, his tone even. He's more determined than I anticipated. Maki returned promptly, her stride confident. She leaned in, her voice barely audible, there's talk about a legend. It's said that within Greed Island, there's a special condition. If one completes the game, they're granted the privilege of choosing a card to take out. One such card is the Angel's Breath, a rarity among rarities. It's believed that this card has the power to cure any illness. Canary's eyes widened slightly, her fingers gently brushing against Haruto's hand. Do you think he's after it for a personal reason? Haruto nodded, processing the information. Likely for his lover. I've heard she's gravely ill. Courtpy, who had remained silent until now, interjected, that explains the desperation. After a brief pause, Haruto murmured to Maki, tell Batara that the Meteor Kingdom has the means to heal his lover. Advise him to cease this bidding war. If we're unsuccessful in our attempts, he can have one of the game's consoles, on our terms. Maki nodded, swiftly making her way towards Batara. Canary observed Haruto for a moment, admiration evident in her eyes. Your ability to navigate situations always amazes me, she confessed. Haruto smiled, a hint of warmth in his eyes. It's not about navigating, Canary. It's about understanding the desires that drive people. Maki approached Batara, her presence demanding his attention. Mr. Batara, she began, her voice steady, King Haruto of the Meteor Kingdom offers a proposal. The kingdom possesses the capabilities to heal your beloved. Withdraw from this bidding war, and should we fail in our efforts, you will receive a console, free of charge. Batara, taken aback, studied Maki for a moment, then shifted his gaze towards Haruto. The two locked eyes, a silent communication passing between them. After a tense pause, Batara replied, your king's reputation precedes him. Very well, I accept. Maki nodded, acknowledging his decision, and returned to Haruto's side. The auctioneer, sensing the shift in dynamics, cleared her throat. Any further bids? The room still buzzed from Batara's substantial bid, its reverberations palpable. The auctioneer awaited the next move, her gavel at the ready. All eyes turned to Haruto and his party, anticipation filling the room. Canary, her fingers lightly grazing the paddle, lifted it with deliberate grace, her voice clear, 1.8 billion jenny. There was a collective intake of breath. Everyone awaited Batara's counter, but he merely sat down, A respectful nod directed towards Haruto. The Meteor Kingdom, represented by the poised group of four, took control of the room. The bidding continued, but none dared to challenge Canary's bid after Batara's withdrawal. Each time a Greed Island game was presented, the Meteor Kingdom claimed it, raising the bid just enough to deter competition. Their strategy was evident, allowing them to win all 7 consoles without unnecessary extravagance. The room was filled with whispers, a chorus of envy, disbelief, and reluctant admiration. People from every corner craned their necks to get a glimpse of the enigmatic group. Each time Haruto caught someone's gaze, they would quickly look away, overpowered by his quiet intensity. After the auction, Haruto and his party found themselves amidst a lavish ball, the atmosphere buzzing with concealed curiosity and opportunistic glances. The luxurious hall echoed with soft melodies, as influential figures and high-profile attendees milled about, their eyes frequently darting towards the group from the Meteor Kingdom. There was a palpable sense of eagerness in the air. Everyone was keen to form a connection with Haruto, whose kingdom not only led in technological advancements but also held a significant prowess in Nen. Batara, the old man from earlier, was the first to take the initiative. His gaze fixed on Haruto, he navigated through the crowd, a determined glint in his eyes. The rumors of Meteor Kingdom's advanced medical capabilities had reached him long before, and despite the long-standing bad reputation overshadowing the brilliance of the kingdom due to its past, Meteor City, Batara was ready to take a chance. The Greed Island game was, after all, shrouded in mystery, and the offer from Haruto was tangible. As Batara approached, Haruto's eyes met his, acknowledgement flickering in his gaze. The old man cleared his throat, his voice steady. "King Haruto, I must extend my gratitude for your generous offer today." Haruto nodded slightly, his posture upright and commanding. "Mr. Batara, it's within our interest to assist. Your circumstances have reached us, and we believe in lending our strength where it's needed." Batara nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his features. "I've heard of the capabilities of the Meteor Kingdom, and I'm willing to place my trust in your hands." Canary, standing gracefully by Haruto's side, interjected softly, her gaze warm. "We will do everything in our power, Mr. Batara. Your trust isn't misplaced." After looking left and right, Batara leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Is it true that you can harness Nen?" The word seemed foreign as it left his lips, "and merge it with technology? That is why you are so advanced?" Haruto's gaze remained steady, his expression unreadable. "It is true," he replied after a pause, his tone even. "Our advancements in combining Nen with technology have opened doors to possibilities others deem impossible." Batara's eyes held a spark of intrigue. "And this is something you can apply to medical fields as well?" "Indeed," Haruto affirmed, his posture relaxed yet authoritative. "We've integrated Nen in various sectors, including medicine, to enhance our capabilities." Maki, observing silently until now, added, "Our healers are adept in using Nen to diagnose and treat ailments with a precision that conventional medicine can't achieve." Canary's eyes met Haruto's for a brief moment before she spoke, her voice gentle. "We believe in using every resource at our disposal to better the lives of those in our kingdom and beyond." Batara seemed to ponder their words, his gaze shifting between each of them. "And what would you ask in return for such a service?" Haruto's chin lifted slightly, his eyes locking with Batara's. "A partnership. Your resources combined with our technology can bring about advancements beneficial to both parties." Batara's expression softened. "A partnership? Yes, I can see the benefits." He straightened, his decision made. "Very well, I am willing to form this alliance." Kortopi, who had been quiet until now, spoke. "It's a wise decision. Our kingdom values trust and mutual growth in partnerships." Batara nodded, seemingly satisfied with their assurances. "I look forward to our future endeavors then. And I am grateful for your help with my personal matter." Haruto offered a slight nod, his demeanor calm yet reassuring. "You have our word, Mr. Batara." Chapter 110. As Batara excused himself, the atmosphere around them shifted subtly, the quiet confidence emanating from Haruto more palpable than before. Canary turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "That went well." "It did," Haruto agreed, his gaze drifting across the room. "But this is just the beginning. There's much more to achieve." Maki, leaning in slightly, asked, "What's the next step, Haruto?" "We consolidate our resources, strengthen our alliances, and keep an eye on the movements within the Nen world. We're stepping onto a larger stage," Haruto explained, his voice steady. Canary, looking up at him, her admiration clear, "And we'll be right there with you." Haruto's gaze softened as he looked at her. "I know. I'm counting on all of you." As the evening wore on, more business tycoons and influential figures navigated their way towards Haruto and his companions, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and opportunism. Each individual carried themselves with an air of self-importance, yet their glances towards Haruto were laced with an unspoken desire to exploit his youth for their gain. A man of imposing stature approached, his suit immaculately tailored, and his smile practiced. "King Haruto," he began, his voice smooth, "what a pleasure to finally meet the prodigy of the Meteor Kingdom. I am Alexander Cross, CEO of Cross Innovations." Haruto's eyes met Alexander's, his expression calm. "Mr. Cross, welcome. I'm familiar with your work in bioengineering." Alexander chuckled, seemingly pleased. "Ah, I'm flattered. Your kingdom has made remarkable strides in that field as well." Haruto's smile remained in place, gracious yet discerning. "Thank you, Mr. Cross. We have indeed invested significantly in bioengineering, always seeking ways to better our kingdom. I'm curious, though, what specifically interests you about our advancements in this field?" Alexander maintained his confident demeanor, though a flicker of surprise passed through his eyes. "Well, King Haruto, the potential for collaboration is vast. We have been exploring new technologies and innovations, and we believe that a partnership could be mutually beneficial." "That sounds promising," Haruto nodded, his eyes never leaving Alexander's. "Your company has a vast array of projects. Could you share which particular aspect of our work you believe aligns with your current endeavors?" Alexander paused, his mind racing. Haruto's question was precise, requiring a detailed answer. "We are particularly intrigued by your work in genomic editing and its applications in medicine. The strides your scientists have made are groundbreaking, and we see a lot of potential there." "I'm glad to hear that," Haruto responded, his tone steady. "Genomic editing is indeed a powerful tool, one that holds the potential to change lives. However, it also comes with significant ethical responsibilities. How does Cross Innovations navigate these complex ethical waters, especially when commercial interests are at stake?" Alexander was momentarily taken aback. This was not the naive young king he had expected. He quickly composed himself, realizing he needed to tread carefully. "Ethics are of utmost importance to us at Cross Innovations. We have a dedicated team to ensure that all our projects comply with international ethical standards, and we strive to balance commercial success with societal benefit." "That's reassuring to hear," Haruto said, his expression thoughtful. "Balancing commercial success and societal benefit is indeed a challenging task. In your experience, Mr. Cross, how do you ensure that the pursuit of profit does not overshadow the need for ethical responsibility?" Alexander felt the walls closing in. Haruto's questions were probing, demanding transparency and sincerity. He chose his words carefully, aware that any slip could reveal his true intentions. "King Haruto, it's a constant challenge. We believe in transparency and accountability, and we ensure that all our stakeholders are kept in the loop regarding our practices. Our reputation is our most valuable asset, and we strive to uphold it in every aspect of our business." Haruto nodded, his expression unreadable. "I appreciate your insights, Mr. Cross. Reputation is indeed valuable. As a young king, I strive to learn from experienced leaders like yourself. It's interesting to discuss these matters and understand the perspectives of those who have navigated these waters for decades." Haruto's gaze remained locked onto Alexander's, the intensity growing with each passing moment. The young king leaned in slightly, causing Alexander to instinctively do the same. The atmosphere in the room grew tense, the silent undercurrent palpable. Mr. Cross, Haruto began, his voice soft yet compelling, your company has worked with several kingdoms in the past, hasn't it? Alexander nodded, wary but still trying to keep his composure. Yes, we've had the privilege of collaborating with many governments and leaders. Haruto's eyes twinkled with mischief for just a moment. Could you share a specific instance where Cross Innovations had to prioritize ethical responsibility over potential profit? Alexander hesitated, his throat suddenly dry. There were certainly instances in the past that were less than flattering, and bringing them up now would put him in a vulnerable position. Still, he tried to find a neutral answer. Well, King Haruto, there have been cases where we've halted projects that showed potential risks, even if they promised lucrative returns. A smile tugged at the corners of Haruto's lips. I'm familiar with a few of those halted projects. Specifically, the one in the neighboring Republic of Arcario. What lessons did Cross Innovations learn from that venture? Alexander's heart raced. The Azure Kingdom venture had been a blot on Cross Innovations' reputation, a project that aimed to exploit the region's natural resources, which had resulted in environmental degradation. It was not something he wanted to discuss, especially not with King Haruto. We learned the importance of environmental sustainability, King Haruto, and the significance of listening to the concerns of local communities. Haruto's gaze remained fixed on Alexander, unblinking and penetrating. The king's demeanor was calm and composed, but his questions were razor-sharp, cutting through the practiced charm of the experienced CEO. Mr. Cross, Haruto continued, his tone even but laced with an undercurrent of determination, the Arcario incident left quite a mark on your company's reputation, didn't it? It must have been a difficult time for Cross Innovations. Alexander's palms began to sweat as he sensed the direction in which this conversation was heading. However, he maintained his composure, replying, yes, King Haruto, it was a challenging period. But we learned valuable lessons and have since made significant changes to our operations to ensure such incidents do not happen again. Haruto nodded slowly, that's commendable, Mr. Cross. Learning from past mistakes is crucial. He paused, letting the silence stretch out between them, before adding, in the spirit of learning from the past, how do you envision a partnership with Meteor Kingdom differing from your previous ventures? Caught off guard by the question, Alexander hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering, we have grown and evolved since those days, King Haruto. A partnership with Meteor Kingdom would be based on mutual respect, transparency, and a shared vision for innovation. And yet, Haruto pressed on, his voice steady, the allure of Meteor Kingdom's advanced bioengineering technology is strong. How does Cross Innovations plan to ensure that the shared vision for innovation doesn't become a one-sided exchange, with our kingdom's knowledge and resources fueling your company's growth while leaving us with little in return? Alexander's mask of confidence began to crack. Haruto had seen through the polished exterior, exposing the underlying agenda. Alexander's mind raced, searching for a way to salvage the situation. King Haruto, I assure you, our intention is to create a partnership that benefits both parties equally. We are fully committed to a fair and equitable collaboration. But Haruto wasn't finished. He leaned in closer, his eyes piercing. And yet, Mr. Cross, I can't help but wonder how you define fair and equitable. After all, fairness is subjective, and what might seem equitable to Cross Innovations might not necessarily be so for Meteor Kingdom. So, I ask you, directly and plainly, what guarantees can you provide that our kingdom will not be left disadvantaged, our resources and knowledge exploited for the gain of Cross Innovations? Alexander was cornered. Haruto's questions had laid bare the predatory nature of his intentions, revealing the exploitation hidden beneath the veneer of partnership and collaboration. The room fell silent, the air charged with tension as all eyes turned to Alexander, waiting for his response. But Alexander had no response to give. The young king had checkmated him, exposing his true intentions and leaving him with no room to maneuver. Haruto's seemingly simple questions had cut through decades of business acumen and experience, revealing the shark lurking beneath the surface. Alexander, feeling the intense pressure and realizing that he had no way to counter King Haruto's probing questions, made a hasty exit after promising to reconnect for further discussions. He swiftly moved through the room, his composure shaken, while other business magnates hesitated to approach the young king. It was clear to all that Haruto was not inexperienced or easily fooled. Canary, observing the situation, exchanged a knowing glance with Maki. He didn't know what hit him, she commented softly, her voice laced with amusement. Maki smirked in response, her eyes following Alexander's retreating figure. Haruto has a way of doing that, she said, her tone reflecting her admiration for the young king. Haruto, meanwhile, remained calm and composed, his eyes scanning the room as if assessing his next move. Courtopy, who had been silent throughout the exchange, now spoke up. You really put him on the spot, Haruto. Haruto turned to Courtopy, his eyes reflecting a glint of mischief. Well, he needed to know we're not pushovers. We're not just a kingdom, we're a force to be reckoned with. Canary, her eyes softening, looked at Haruto. You did great, she said, her tone sincere. You showed them that we won't be taken advantage of. Chapter 111. To return to the Meteor Kingdom, Haruto, with his trusty group and the new additions of Neon and Baze, quickly boarded his private jet. The flight back was smooth, and the atmosphere inside the jet was filled with a subdued excitement. Canary had given her approval for Neon and Baze to join their ranks, extending the hospitality and protection of the Meteor Kingdom to them. As the jet landed and the group disembarked, they made their way to the royal palace. The throne room was bustling with activity as Maluki, Gon, Killua, Leorio, and Kurapika eagerly awaited their return. Their eyes lit up as Haruto and his group entered, and without a moment's hesitation, they all knelt in unison, greeting him with respect. Welcome back, King Haruto. Haruto nodded in acknowledgement. Maluki, we've retrieved all the game copies. I trust you know what to do. Maluki's eyes sparkled with excitement as he eagerly took the games from Maki, but then he hesitated, his excitement turning into tentative hope. King Haruto, I've been thinking. What if we send these kids into the game? They could gather information from the inside. Would you permit it? Haruto took a moment, his gaze piercing as he considered the implications and potential benefits. Finally, he gave a nod of approval. That is fine. Killua and Gon, unable to contain their excitement, jumped up, their faces lit up with enthusiasm. Haruto, sensing their eagerness, dismissed them with a wave of his hand, his mind already elsewhere. As the throne room emptied, Haruto turned his thoughts to the game. He was certain that Greed Island was more than just a game, it was a real place, and the game was a means of transportation. An advanced utilization of Nen. The players, when they wish to enter the game, their intent is recognized by the device, and they are transported to the island, Haruto murmured to himself, his voice low but filled with certainty. There, they interact with the game interface, another application of Nen. A person, entered with other means, wouldn't see this interface. His gaze was distant as he continued to piece the puzzle together in his mind, his sharp intellect cutting through the mysteries of the game. The NPCs, he mused, his voice trailing off as he delved deeper into his thoughts. They are likely conjured beings, given life and purpose through Nen. It's a complex and masterful application, something only a skilled Nen user could achieve. Haruto's eyes gleamed with a light of realization as he continued to unravel the secrets of the game. The cards, the items, they're all tied to Nen. It's a world built upon it, a playground for those who understand its rules. Canary, Maki, and Courtopy watched silently as Haruto deconstructed the game's mysteries, their respect for his intellect evident in their eyes. Haruto, fully aware of their gaze, didn't falter. His confidence grew as he continued to speak, his words flowing with an ease that belied the complexity of the topic. And the risks, the dangers inside the game, they are real as well, he concluded, his voice firm. We must tread carefully, but the knowledge to be gained is invaluable. Canary stepped forward, her eyes filled with concern. Haruto, this game, it's dangerous. Are you sure about sending them in? They will be fine. Killua has been trained by Koshiro for years. Kurapika is the same. And there is that kid, Haruto's voice echoed with a conviction as he thought about Gon. His potential is monstrous. Canary nodded, remembering previous conversations about the green-haired boy. Haruto had speculated that Gon might be a mix of human and another race, one that evolved more in physical and nen potential than the intellectual evolution humans undertook. Gon indeed has potential, she agreed, her eyes reflecting her trust in Haruto's judgment. Just then, the door opened, and Phaeton stepped inside, his presence immediately drawing attention. He moved with an ease and familiarity, coming to stand by Haruto's side. "Haruto," an old man sent a message. He said he promised a group of people they could enter the game, and now that he's given up on the auction because of you, he asks if we can allow them. Haruto took a moment, his mind swiftly analyzing the situation before nodding decisively. Evaluate them and their intentions, then have them group with Killua and the others. Phaeton gave a curt nod and left, his steps swift and determined. Haruto's attention, however, returned to the game, his mind delving deeper into the intricacies of Nen and its application within Greed Island. The game's creator. He was a master of Nen, beyond what most could even dream of achieving, Haruto mused, his eyes gleaming with a mix of respect and curiosity. To create a world like this, he would need to be proficient in all types of Nen, manipulating them to create the game's mechanics. He analyzes it in detail, pondering over the types of Nen that might have been employed to craft the unique world of Greed Island. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, dissecting every possible aspect of the game. The creator must have had an exceptional grasp on conjuration, Haruto spoke out loud, his eyes focused yet distant. The cards, the items, they are all materialized from Nen, taking physical form from the player's thoughts. Canary nodded in agreement, her eyes on Haruto as she listened intently. And manipulation? She inquired softly, curious about his thoughts on the matter. Absolutely, Haruto responded, his gaze meeting hers. The NPCs, the way they interact with players. It's a clear use of manipulation Nen. They are conjured beings, but they think, act, and respond as if they were real. That level of control, it's extraordinary. His voice held a mix of admiration and intrigue, his respect for the game's creator evident in every word. Maki, silent till now, finally spoke, what about transmutation and enhancement? Do you think they played a role as well? Haruto paused, considering her question. Transmutation. Yes, likely in altering the properties of the Nen used, making the game's mechanics more versatile. Enhancement would be necessary too, especially to sustain the game's world and maintain its integrity over time. Chapter 112. Haruto sat regally upon his throne in the throne room of Meteor Kingdom, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts as he pieced together the complexities of Nen. The room, usually filled with his council, was quieter today, hosting only Canary, Maki, and Cortopi, who were seated around a crescent table in front of him. The grandeur of the throne room, with its high ceilings and intricate designs, contrasted sharply with the intensity of their discussion. His mind, however, was not on the opulence around him, but rather on the topic at hand. Specialization? Cortopi chimed in quietly, almost hesitantly. Could the creator have used that as well? Haruto turned his attention to Cortopi, his eyes sharp yet encouraging. Indeed, the game's uniqueness, its ability to transport players into another world. That's beyond the realm of the other Nen types. It has to be specialization. His words were filled with certainty, his understanding of Nen and its complexities evident in his analysis. And a mission? Canary asked, her voice gentle as she followed Haruto's train of thought. Haruto nodded, a mission is key. To create a separate space, a different world altogether, and maintain a connection to it. A mission Nen is vital. His words flowed easily, his analysis sharp and insightful. The room was filled with a sense of awe, Haruto's intellect and understanding of Nen leaving no room for doubt. Maki, intrigued and fully invested in the conversation, leaned forward slightly. Can you do it? She asked, her eyes searching Haruto's for an answer. Haruto pondered for a moment before shaking his head, a thoughtful expression on his face. The effort is immense, and holding such a world wouldn't be possible with a single person. I doubt the Greed Island's creator works alone. Probably with a team. But as Meteor Kingdom, we can create something 10 times amazing. His voice held a spark of excitement, his mind already racing with possibilities. Haruto's eyes took on a serious glint as he continued, however, we must tread carefully. The simulation will be a massive undertaking, and the risks are significant. We're venturing into uncharted territory, and the unknown can be unforgiving. We need to prepare our soldiers, make sure they are ready for the challenges that lie ahead. With a determined look, Haruto shared his vision. This simulation is just the first step. Our ultimate goal is to set foot into unexplored lands, to establish a foothold and expand our horizons. Meteor Kingdom will not shy away from the challenge, we will be ready. Kotobi, drawn in by the conversation and Haruto's confidence, couldn't help but ask, how? His curiosity was evident, his eyes fixed on Haruto. Haruto's lips curved into a smile. Remember the rumor Maki mentioned about Batara? The card that can heal all wounds? The reason why the card is so strong has two possibilities, either they have a strong healer Nen master among them, or they used vows and limitations. At the mention of vows and limitations, the room's atmosphere shifted. All present knew the weight of those words, the risk and power they carried. Canary, her eyes filled with a mix of concern and curiosity, was the first to voice the question on everyone's minds. You mean they created cards under limitations and vows? Haruto nodded, his expression serious as he delved into the heart of the matter. Limitations are many. The cards are varying in rarity, and the rarer it is, the less number of it there is. Using vows and limitations can significantly amplify the power of Nen. It's a risky move, but it makes the impossible possible. He paused, ensuring his words had sunken before continuing. For example, if we were to create a card similar to Blessing of the Angel, we'd need a master healer. But if that's not available, we could set a limitation. The card can only be used once a month, and it demands a great deal of energy from the user. These conditions would make the card's power attainable. Maki, her eyes wide, was quick to catch on. So, the stronger the limitation, the stronger the power we can draw out. Exactly, Haruto affirmed, pleased with her quick understanding. But it's a delicate balance. Pushed too far, and the risk outweighs the reward. Canary, her brows furrowed in thought, added, and it requires absolute commitment. Any hesitation or doubt, and it could backfire. Haruto nodded, that's why it's a path not often taken. But it's a path that can lead to incredible power. Maki, still absorbing the information, asked another question, what about the players? How do the vows and limitations affect them? Haruto leaned back, his expression contemplative. The players are affected based on their interaction with the cards. For example, a card that grants immense strength but requires the player to not speak for a week. It's a trade-off, a limitation set to balance the power. Canary, deep in thought, realized another aspect, and that's why the cards have ranks and categories. Yes, Haruto agreed, his eyes lighting up with appreciation for her insight. The ranks and categories are a way to categorize the power levels and the associated risks and limitations. The room fell into a thoughtful silence, each person lost in their thoughts as they digested the information. Haruto, his mind always working, broke the silence. This knowledge, it gives us an edge. We can decipher the game's mechanics, and use it to our advantage. Maki, inspired by the conversation, nodded in agreement. It's like having a key to a locked door. We just need to figure out how to use it. Maki then asked, and you want to create a game like that? Haruto shook his head, locking gaze with her. No, I want to create a simulation for that place. It is high time our people train for it. He then ordered, Maki, tell Miluki to save a device. I will enter the game with Canary, Phaeton, Finks, and Komugi. As Maki swiftly left the room, her movements a clear reflection of her commitment to Haruto's plans, the atmosphere in the room shifted slightly. Haruto turned back to the remaining members, his grin wild, ready to delve back into the exhilarating puzzle they were unraveling. Haruto turned back to the remaining members in the room, his grin turning wild, akin to a predator that enjoyed hunting. Let me enjoy this puzzle for a while then. His eyes gleamed with excitement, his mind racing with possibilities and strategies. It was clear that Haruto thrived in situations that challenged his intellect, and this was no different. Chapter 113. Entering the advanced game room within the palace, Miluki offered respectful greetings to Haruto, Canary, Finks, Phaeton, and Komugi. "Welcome, everyone," he said, a hint of excitement in his voice. Haruto nodded, his eyes scanning the room before settling on the gaming console. He moved forward gracefully, the others parting to make way for him instinctively. "Let's see what this game is all about," Haruto murmured, his voice calm yet filled with a quiet confidence. The room fell silent, all eyes on him as he started to navigate through the game's details. In the room, Killua, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio were already present, along with Baze and Neon. Over the past few days, Koshiro had taken it upon himself to teach Neon how to control her Nen, given her existing ability to use Hatsu. The responsibility to finish the game, if possible, was theirs, while Haruto's team focused on research. Haruto came before one of the councils, noticing immediately that it had extra slots. This was a game that could allow up to 8 players instead of just 1. He decided he would enter first, followed by Canary, then Komugi, Phaeton, and Finks. The others would play separately. As he released his Nen to the ring that was necessary to enter the game, his form flickered and then vanished from the room. He reappeared in a virtual space, surrounded by walls adorned with strange markings and doors that seemed to lead in all directions. Haruto's eyes quickly scanned the room, his body poised and ready for whatever came next. The markings on the walls drew his attention, intricate and glowing faintly in the dim light of the virtual space. Each door had its own unique set of markings, as if telling a story or providing a clue. He chose a door at random, stepping through with confidence. The room beyond was vast, the ceiling high above and the walls stretching out wide. More markings adorned the surfaces here, and Haruto felt a strange sense of anticipation as he moved forward. After passing through several more doors, each leading him deeper into the virtual labyrinth, Haruto entered a room that was different from the others. In the center floated a girl, suspended in mid-air by a futuristic chair that seemed to be controlling the game. The girl, upon noticing Haruto, seemed equally surprised. Her eyes widened as she took in his presence, and Haruto could feel the weight of her gaze on him. He could sense her strength, latent and powerful, even though it was not currently unleashed. She regained her composure and said, "Welcome to Greed Island, player. Would you like to hear the guideline?" Haruto nodded, his posture relaxed but attentive, ready to absorb every piece of information. The girl began to explain, her voice steady. Upon entering, each player is given a ring. This ring is your key to navigating the game. There are 2 keyword spells that you can use with it, book and gain. When you say book, a binder will appear. This binder is essential for storing your cards. There are 100 specified card slots that you need to fill to complete the game. Additionally, there are 45 free slots for any extra cards you might pick up along the way. Haruto listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers as he processed the information. "And the gain command?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. "When you say gain, you can turn any item in its card form back into its physical form," she continued. "But be careful, once an item is transformed back, it cannot return to its card form again." He nodded, understanding the stakes. "Anything else I should know about these cards?" "The cards are crucial," she explained. "All items you find on the island will transform into cards. If a card is not placed in the binder within a minute, it will revert back to its item form, and you'll have to find it again. The cards can't be used outside the game, and they won't respond to gain unless they are one of the 3 special cards placed in a case obtained by clearing the game." Haruto absorbed the information, his mind already strategizing. "Tell me about the difficulty levels and conversion limits," he prompted. "There are 10 difficulty levels for the cards, ranging from SS, the hardest, to H, the easiest. The upper right corner of each card will show its difficulty level and conversion limit. The higher the rank, the lower the conversion limit. He understood that this meant some items would be scarcer than others. It added an additional layer of challenge to the game. She seemed to sense his realization, a small smile playing on her lips. Anything else you wish to know? Haruto paused, considering. The players. Can I see a list of those currently in the game? Use the binder, she replied, her tone suggesting it was a test. Say book, and you'll find what you need. He did as instructed, saying the keyword. A binder materialized in his hand, and he quickly flipped it open, finding a section listing the names of all the players. Satisfied, he looked up at the girl. I think I've got it. Thanks for the info. She nodded, her expression unreadable. Good luck, player. Greed Island is not for the faint of heart. Haruto smiled, his posture poised and confident as he proceeded down the spiraling stairs. The scenery unfolded into an endless grassy meadow, framed by a towering structure. Soon, he was joined by the others. Canary arrived first, a glint of determination in her eyes, followed by Komugi, whose gaze darted around in awe and surprise. Her eyes, recently healed, drank in the world with a childlike wonder. Haruto, is this? Her voice trembled slightly, a mix of excitement and apprehension lacing her words. Yes, Komugi. Welcome to Greed Island, Haruto responded. Phaeton and Finks soon made their appearance, eyes scanning the surroundings, always alert. The group was now complete, yet the presence of others lingered. Shadows seemed to watch them, unseen yet felt. Chapter 114. As Killua, gone, and the rest arrived, Kurapika bowed respectfully, his voice clear and sincere. We will take our leaves now. Haruto nodded in acknowledgement, his gaze steady. Go on. We'll handle things here, he said, subtly ushering his elite nen masters to explore and engage with the world as they pleased. Now, only Haruto, Canary, Komugi, Phaeton, and Finks remained, standing under the vast sky with the meadow stretching out before them. Canary scoffed lightly, a smirk playing on her lips. How long are they going to watch us? Her voice, though light, carried a hidden edge, a warrior's intuition sensing the unseen eyes. Haruto's smile turned wider as he saw the curious glances and hidden smirks from the shadows. They think we are newbies, so they want to exploit us. Don't worry about them. He kept his tone light, yet the confidence and command were evident. His companions didn't seem concerned either, and they continued walking, their steps sure and unbothered. However, their calmness was soon interrupted as an aura started to descend from above, landing smoothly next to them. A tall man with an imposing presence appeared, his purple hair standing in bunches, and large piercings adorned his left cheekbone. He wore a yellow tank top paired with gray baggy pants, his look completed with knee and wrist protectors, each adorned with symbols. The man smirked as he took out his binder, his eyes scanning the group for any hint of reaction. When he saw none, his grin widened, evidently pleased. Looks like we've got some fresh meat, he taunted, his voice loud and carrying across the meadow. Haruto turned to face him, his smile never fading. Is that so? And what makes you think that? His tone was calm, yet there was a hint of amusement in his voice. The man chuckled, well, for starters, none of you pulled out your binders when I did. That's a clear sign you're new here. He crossed his arms, looking satisfied with his assessment. Canary stepped forward, her smirk matching his. Maybe we just didn't think it was necessary. We're not here to play by the book, she said, her tone playful yet sharp. The man's eyes narrowed slightly, evidently taken aback by their responses. He hadn't expected such composure from a group of supposed newbies. Haruto stepped closer, his presence commanding. We're not here for trouble, but we're not pushovers either. So, I suggest you take your games elsewhere. The man took a moment, his eyes studying Haruto closely before bursting into laughter. I like you, kid. You've got guts. But this game is not somewhere the likes of you should come easily. Canary's fist clenched as she took a step forward, her entire being emanating a silent fury. Phaeton and Finks shared a glance, the tension in the air tangible, and they were ready to jump into action. However, Haruto stopped them with a simple, subtle look. A silent command that spoke volumes, showing his trust in their loyalty and his desire to handle the situation himself. The man grinned, seemingly amused by the brewing storm. He took out a card, his eyes glinting with mischief. Checking their names through the book, he said, "So, you are Haruto, Canary, Komugi, Phaeton, and Finks. Hee." His laughter echoed across the meadow, a sound filled with arrogance and challenge. He played with 3 cards, deliberating, then decided to use one. Trace on, attack Haruto. A light left the card, homing towards Haruto, unwavering and relentless. It became immediately apparent to Haruto that he couldn't destroy or evade the light by normal means. It was as if the light was an integral part of the universal laws ruling this island. This was the reason Haruto was here, to understand and learn the mechanics of this mysterious and perilous game. Meanwhile, Canary's eyes locked onto the man, deadly and filled with a murderous intent. Her aura intensified, making the air around them heavy. The man, feeling the overwhelming pressure, shivered in his boots, realizing he might have provoked the wrong group. He was about to use another card, desperate to escape, when he suddenly found himself unable to move. His jaw locked, his body frozen in place, as if invisible ropes bound him tightly. Panic surged through him as he felt every cell in his body immobilized. Haruto, unaffected by the light that was supposed to attack him, calmly walked toward the paralyzed man. His presence was commanding, his aura exuding a subtle yet undeniable power. His eyes, sharp and focused, never left the man's face. Haruto looked at Phaeton and said, "Phaeton, make him speak." A wild, sadistic smile covered Phaeton's face as he took a step forward. Torture and interrogation were his favorite activities. Without wasting a moment, Phaeton cracked his knuckles and leaned in closer to the paralyzed man. His eyes were gleaming with a dark thrill as he whispered, Now, let's not make this harder than it has to be." The man's eyes widened with fear, his breath hitching as he realized what was coming. Canary stood by, her gaze sharp and alert. She wasn't going to interfere, she trusted Phaeton to handle this. Finks, on the other hand, leaned against a tree, watching the scene unfold with mild interest. Komugi stayed close to Haruto, her eyes filled with worry but trusting in his judgment. "Who sent you?" Phaeton's voice was low and menacing, his patience wearing thin. The man struggled, trying to break free from the invisible restraints, but it was futile. I don't know what you're talking about." The man's voice trembled, his fear evident. Phaeton chuckled darkly, "Wrong answer." He pulled out a small blade, the metal gleaming ominously in the sunlight. "Let's try this again. Who sent you?" The man's breathing became ragged, his eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. I can't tell you. He'll kill me." Phaeton's smile only widened at this. "Oh, you think he's scary? Trust me, I can be much, much worse." Chapter 115. The meadow, a tranquil expanse within the virtual yet tangible world of Greed Island, was bathed in the golden hues of the afternoon sun. Nature's tapestry was woven with vibrant greens and subtle pastels, creating a peaceful scene that starkly contrasted with the violence unfolding. The environment, meticulously crafted in the real world, was a masterpiece of virtual reality, blurring the lines between game and reality. Haruto watched silently, his expression unreadable. The meadow, once serene, now bore evidence of a conflict. The man lay on the ground, taking labored breaths. Every inch of him was a testament to Phaeton's cruelty. His hands and legs were a grotesque shade of red and blue, bloodied and bruised. The light in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by a vacant look of someone who had seen the depths of despair. Haruto's features remained stoic, his eyes detached as they observed the scene before him. His dispassion was a fortress, shielding him from the brutality, or perhaps, rendering him indifferent to it. Phaeton could always get what he wanted. There was no if, only how long it would take. Of course, the longer it was, the more fun Phaeton would have. Looking at his binding, Phaeton grinned. He robbed the man of all his possessions, and learned who sent him, Bomber. Interesting name, Finks laughed. Haruto didn't comment, he couldn't register such a person, it was beneath him. The meadow, once serene, now bore a heavy residue of violence and interrogation. Birds that once chirped merrily had flown away, leaving behind an eerie silence, broken only by the man's heavy, ragged breaths. Canary's gaze was icy as she looked down at the defeated man, her anger still apparent, though slightly subdued. Her fury had transformed into a quiet, lethal calmness. Haruto stood a few steps away, his gaze indifferent, his posture relaxed yet poised. Pathetic, Phaeton commented with a smirk, cleaning his blade on the man's clothes. Didn't even last an hour. Finks chuckled, his laughter resonating in the silent meadow. Well, he did give us the name. That's something. Phaeton's laughter, cold and mocking, echoed through the meadow as he admired his handiwork. Pathetic, indeed. I've seen dolls with more resilience, he sneered, his eyes glinting with sadistic pleasure. Finks joined in, his chuckle deep and resonating, and yet, he talked. They always talk. He glanced at Phaeton with a knowing smirk, reminiscing about past conquests drenched in violence. Komugi, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke, her voice gentle. Is he going to be okay? Komugi, her eyes recently opened to a world she had never seen, stood silently, her innocence stark against the backdrop of violence. She had been sheltered, kept away from such brutality, and the shock was evident in her wide, unblinking eyes. Every inch of the man's battered form spoke volumes of the cruelty unleashed upon him. His limbs, contorted and discolored, bore the brutal imprints of Phaeton's sadistic enjoyment. His breaths were ragged, labored, as if each inhalation was a battle in itself, and his eyes, once perhaps bright and full of life, were now dull, vacant pools reflecting the abyss of his despair. Haruto didn't answer. Komugi needed to learn the cruelty of the world. She wouldn't always be sheltered. Instead, Finks answered, he will die. Not by us, but that is the fate of offending the king. Phaeton nodded in agreement, his stance relaxed, showcasing his nonchalance over the man's fate. Canary clenched her fist. She wanted to unleash more of her rage onto the man, but Phaeton had done enough. The air around her was heavy with suppressed anger, and she seemed like a storm ready to burst. Haruto's attention was on the cards in Phaeton's binder. His eyes scanning the various cards, he noticed the diversity in their usage. Some were items, others were utilities. The one that the man had used on him, Trace On, was particularly interesting. It was designed to track him indefinitely, a relentless pursuit that wouldn't cease. Haruto, however, was unfazed. There were a few ways to lift it, but he didn't care. He wasn't worried about anyone being able to follow him. Finks, leaning against a tree, had a smirk on his face. Well, this was interesting. Wonder if there are more like him. Phaeton chuckled, would be fun, wouldn't it? Canary, finally speaking, her voice laced with venom, next time, I won't hold back. He was lucky. Komugi, still standing close to Haruto, had a conflicted look on her face. She was trying to reconcile the violence she had witnessed with the people she knew. She knew they were strong, but this brutality was something she had never seen before. Haruto, sensing her discomfort, finally spoke, this is the way of the world, Komugi. Not everyone is kind and good. There are those who would harm us, and we need to be prepared to defend ourselves. His voice was gentle, yet there was an underlying firmness to it. He was teaching her, helping her understand the harsh realities of life. Komugi nodded, her eyes showing her determination to understand. I know, Haruto. I trust you. Her words were simple, but they held a lot of weight. She trusted him, and that was enough for her to accept, if not understand, the necessity of their actions. Phaeton, closing the binder, looked at Haruto. What do we do with him? Haruto, after a moment's thought, answered, leave him. He's no threat now, and we have other things to focus on. Canary, though not completely satisfied, nodded in agreement. She trusted Haruto's judgment, even if she didn't agree with it. Finks pushed himself off the tree, stretching. Well, that was a good workout, wasn't it? Canary shot him a glare, But Finks just grinned in response, not at all affected by her anger. The group, now ready to move on, left the meadow, leaving behind the man, his breath still ragged, his body a testament to their wrath. As they walked away, Haruto's mind was working, analyzing the situation. This was a game, but it was also a battlefield. There were rules, but there was also the brutal reality of survival. He needed to understand both if he was going to master this game and protect his people. Canary walked beside him, her anger now replaced by determination. She was ready to fight, ready to protect her family. Chapter 116. The group soon reached Antakiba, a city bustling with energy and excitement, positioned conveniently close to Greed Island's starting point. Komugi's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she took in the vibrant surroundings, her enthusiasm infectious. "This place is amazing, Haruto. Look at all the people and the shops," she exclaimed, her voice filled with wonder. Haruto smiled, appreciating her joy but remained vigilant, his eyes scanning the crowd as he assessed the other players in the vicinity. Phaeton and Finks, standing close, shared Haruto's skepticism. "These players," Finks started, his voice low and filled with a hint of disdain, "they're hardly worth our time." "Indeed," Haruto agreed, his voice steady, "but we're not here for them. We're here to understand the game better and find clues to the items we need." The group decided to move through the city, taking note of the various shops and events advertised on posters. The 15th of the month was approaching, bringing with it a major contest and a chance to win a valuable slot card. "Haruto, there's a contest on the 15th. Think we should participate?" Komugi asked, her voice filled with excitement. Haruto considered her words, his chin lifting slightly as he pondered the idea. It could be beneficial. "We need to gather as many cards as we can." Haruto then looked at the locals, NPCs created out of Nen, an integral part of this game's intricate world. A spark of determination lit up his eyes as he decided to approach them, intending to learn more about the game's mechanics and the potential use of Nen in various situations. "Let's talk to them," he called, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity. Without further ado, the group navigated through the bustling streets of Antakiba, their eyes keenly observing the people around them. Haruto took the lead, his stature tall and confident, as they approached a vendor selling colorful trinkets. "Good day," Haruto greeted, his voice calm yet commanding attention. The vendor, an older man with a kind face, looked up and instantly straightened, sensing the authority in Haruto's presence. "Hello, young man. What can I do for you today?" the vendor replied, his tone respectful. Haruto inspected the man closely, his gaze sharp as he navigated through his thoughts, pondering whether the NPC's responses were predetermined or controlled in some manner. "Tell me," he started, his voice steady, "what can you tell us about the contest happening on the 15th? The vendor's eyes brightened as he launched into an explanation, his words flowing smoothly. "Ah, the contest. It's the highlight of the month here in Antakiba. Players from all around come to try their luck and skill. There are games, challenges, and at the end of the day, a lucky winner walks away with the rare items." Haruto listened intently, noting the enthusiasm in the man's voice. It didn't seem rehearsed, but he decided to press further, asking a more complex question to test the waters. "And have you ever seen someone use Nen during these contests? Something out of the ordinary?" The vendor's brows furrowed in confusion. "Nen? What is that?" Haruto's sharp gaze bore into the man, trying to discern the genuineness of his reaction. "It's a technique," Haruto began cautiously. "Have you noticed players or individuals doing something extraordinary, something that defies logic?" The older man scratched his head, clearly puzzled. "I've seen players do all sorts of impressive things during the contests, but I can't say I've noticed anything particularly unusual. It's all part of the spectacle." Phaeton leaned in, narrowing his eyes at the vendor. "How do you explain the phenomena in this game, then? The magic, the creatures, the unnatural happenings?" "That's just how things are here," the man responded with a simple shrug. "Antakiba has always been like this, full of wonder and surprises." Haruto's gaze drifted across the busy street, where players were shopping, conversing, and preparing for the upcoming contest. "Let's move," he suggested, prompting the group to follow him. As they wandered, the streets of Antakiba were abuzz with life. Everywhere they looked, there were posters advertising the various contests and rewards. Canary, walking close to Haruto, softly asked, "What do you think? Could Nen really be a part of this game without the NPCs realizing?" Haruto paused, watching a street performer magically juggle flaming balls with ease. "It's possible. This game is crafted with Nen. It wouldn't be a stretch to think it can manifest in various ways." Komugi, with childlike wonder, pointed to a stall with plush toys. "Look, Haruto. They're so cute," she exclaimed, momentarily distracted. It was a fleeting moment of levity amidst their quest, and Haruto couldn't help but smile at her genuine delight. Phaeton, spotting another vendor, suggested, "Let's ask him." The vendor, a young woman selling ornate masks, greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome. Interested in one of my masks?" Before Haruto could pose his question, Komugi interjected excitedly, "Oh, these are beautiful. Did you make them?" "Yes, all handcrafted," she replied proudly. Haruto, seizing the opportunity, asked, "Have you ever noticed anything unusual about some of the players or the contests?" The woman tilted her head, genuinely surprised. "Players?" she echoed. "Do you mean contest takers?" Canary stepped closer, her eyes searching the woman's for any hint of understanding. "Yes, exactly. Do you know where they come from?" The woman smiled warmly, her eyes taking on a distant look. "Everywhere. The world is vast. I see new faces every day. People come and go. Life is like a river, constantly flowing." Haruto nodded, a thoughtful expression painting his face. He looked around, absorbing the everyday activities of the NPCs, the routines that felt so lifelike. "Tell me, have you ever noticed any anomalies? Unusual activities?" She chuckled softly. "Anomalies? Life here is full of wonders and oddities, young man. But what do you mean by unusual?" Chapter 117. Phaeton leaned against a nearby stall, his eyes never leaving the masked vendor. Actions that defy logic or the natural order of things. She seemed to think for a moment, tapping a delicate finger against her chin. "There are times when I've seen contest takers perform incredible feats. But whether that's due to their skill or some external force, I wouldn't know." Komugi, ever the curious one, excitedly chimed in, "Have you ever seen someone do something magical? Or something that you can't explain?" The woman's eyes twinkled. "Every day, dear. But it's all part of the beauty of Antakiba. The wonder it holds." Finks interjected, "So you've never questioned the source of these wonders? Never wondered how such things are possible?" She laughed lightly, "To question is to take away the magic. I simply enjoy the beauty and leave the mysteries to those who seek them." Canary, with a gentle frown, turned to Haruto, "It seems they don't see the world the way we do. It's as if they're unaware of the boundaries and laws of nature." Komugi, clutching a plush toy she'd picked up earlier, observed, "They live in their reality, and we live in ours." Haruto nodded, his posture straight, giving off an undeniable aura of authority. "We should continue our quest. Understanding the nature of this world is crucial." Seeing the restaurant, they walk in. Dofo Milan, Cavo the Recuir, seemed to hold an air of rustic charm and nostalgia. The ambience was warm and welcoming, but there was a ripple of tension in the air as they stepped inside. The group soon spotted Killua, Kurapika, Gon, and Leorio at a table, engaging in a heated discussion with an angry cat waiter, whose fear seemed to bristle with irritation. "You need to pay for your food," the cat waiter hissed, his tail twitching in annoyance. "We're really sorry, but we didn't realize how expensive it would be," Gon tried to explain, his eyes wide and sincere. Leorio, looking embarrassed and frustrated, added, "We'll find a way to pay you back, we promise." Haruto and his group watched from a distance, gauging the situation. Phaeton smirked, recognizing the familiar banter. He strolled over, ruffling Killua's hair as he arrived. "Short on money, shorty?" Killua's eyes narrowed, looking up at Phaeton with a playful challenge. "Shorty? That's rich coming from you." He smirked, leaning back in his chair. Phaeton raised an eyebrow, a smirk on his lips. "At least I know how to manage my money. Unlike some people." His gaze flicked meaningfully at the empty plates of spaghetti on the table. Haruto, taking the situation in, approached the table with Canary and Komugi by his side. The surrounding patrons of Dofo Milan, Kavo the Recruiter turned their heads, instinctively recognizing the authority he exuded. Even the angry cat waiter seemed to falter a little, his bristling fur settling slightly. "Is there a problem here?" Haruto inquired, his voice calm but holding an underlying power. The cat waiter hesitated for a moment, then replied, "They need to pay for their food." The irritation was evident in his voice, but he was also clearly trying to be respectful to Haruto. Canary, her face softening, looked at the plate. "It's the spaghetti challenge, isn't it?" The cat waiter nodded, his tail twitching slightly. "Yes, if they can finish it in half an hour, they win a Galgaida card. But they haven't paid." Komugi, ever the enthusiast, clapped her hands with excitement. "That sounds like fun. Haruto, can we try it too?" Haruto nodded, then turned to the waiter. "Put their bill on our tab as well," his voice calm and decided. After addressing the waiter, he gracefully took a seat, his movements fluid and precise. The others quickly found their seats, arranging themselves naturally around the table. Killua, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio, now standing at the side, expressed their gratitude with sincere thanks and relieved smiles. With everyone settled, Haruto turned his attention to the four. "Tell me what you learned," he prompted, his gaze sharp and focused. Kurapika was the first to respond, his voice steady as he began to explain. "The people here, they don't know that this is all a game. They're not aware of their existence as non-real entities." He paused, glancing at the others to see if they were following, before continuing. "We've tried to explain it, to ask about it, but it's like the concept is completely foreign to them. They live in their world, and it's as if the rules and boundaries we understand don't apply to them at all." Haruto nodded, his expression contemplative as he processed this information. The bustling atmosphere of the restaurant continued around them, but there was a bubble of intensity at their table as they delved into the intricacies of the game world. "It's fascinating," Komugi chimed in, her eyes wide with interest. "They're created from Nen, yet they have no knowledge of it. It's like they're a part of a grand performance, and they play their roles without question." Canary, her eyes flicking from face to face, added, "It's an elaborate creation. The details, the personalities, everything is so finely crafted. It's almost airy." Phaeton, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke, his voice laced with a hint of amusement. "It's a game, after all. And we're here to play, not to philosophize." Finks nodded in agreement. "Right. Let's focus on what we need to do. Learn the rules, play the game, and win. That's what matters." Canary snorted at the two of them. "You know we are here to learn the details such as this, right?" Her voice held a mix of amusement and a tiny bit of exasperation. Finks, slouching a bit in his chair, responded with a sullen tone, "That's not fun." Chapter 118. As the group made their way into the quaint, rustic charm of Dofo Milan, Kavo the Recruiter, a warm, inviting ambience greeted them. The soft, mellifluous tunes of a live accordion filled the air, blending harmoniously with the gentle clatter of utensils and subdued conversations. The walls, adorned with vintage decor, seemed to echo the rich history of the ancient city of Antiquiba. Haruto observed the delicate dance of golden light and shadows as the evening sun cast its glow through the stained glass windows, painting a picturesque scene. The aroma of fresh bread, simmering tomato sauce, and fragrant herbs tantalized their senses, promising a feast of flavors. Haruto, choosing to ignore their bickering, was observing something else entirely. His attention was captivated by the cook working diligently on a batch of spaghetti. The cook's movements were methodical, almost robotic. Haruto's eyes narrowed slightly as he deduced that the cook was likely a semi-automaton. Unlike the bustling atmosphere of the restaurant, the cook's space was a realm of systematic precision. Every strand of spaghetti was treated with the same monotonous care, not a single deviation from the recipe in sight. In this peculiar setup, the cat waiter was the only NPC interacting with the guests, serving with a polite and neutral demeanor. The cook, on the other hand, was just a bot programmed to cook, a stark contrast to the lively cat waiter. Canary, following Haruto's gaze, tilted her head thoughtfully. It's also calculated, like a well-oiled machine. Komugi, intrigued, leaned in closer to get a better look at the cook. Yes, it's fascinating how they've created such a vivid world, yet there are elements like this that are so mechanical. Phaeton, who had been quietly observing the cook as well, finally spoke up, his voice holding a hint of intrigue. It makes sense. They've created a world that feels real, but at its core, it's still a game. There are bound to be elements that are programmed, systematic. Finks, however, seemed less interested in the philosophical implications. As long as the food is good, I don't care if a robot or a human cooks it, he said, leaning back in his chair with a shrug. Canary chuckled at that, spoken like a true gourmet. The cat waiter, having overheard their conversation, approached with a curious tilt of its head. What's that? Gourmet? Its voice was polite but held a note of genuine confusion. Haruto, deciding to engage in the conversation, explained with a small smile, it means someone who enjoys and appreciates good food. The cat waiter seemed to process this information for a moment before nodding. Ah, I see. Enjoy your meal. With that, it gracefully moved away, back to attending other customers. Amid the contemplation over the mechanistic nature of their environment, a playful banter unfolded between Phaeton and Killua. You know, Phaeton jabbed, I'm Killua, you might just end up being the shortest among us. Killua rolled his eyes, I'm still growing, unlike some people, he retorted, causing a ripple of laughter among the group, barring Haruto, who seemed lost in thought. Phaeton smirked, with that white hair, you'll look like a little old man by the time you're 15. Killua shot back with a grin, at least I won't be mistaken for a child when I'm actually an adult. The playful exchange lightened the atmosphere, bringing an essence of camaraderie amidst the philosophical musings. Phaeton wasn't done yet. Well, at least I don't have to dye my hair to look intimidating, he quipped, examining his nails nonchalantly. Killua retorted, oh please, the only thing intimidating about you is your bad temper. After savoring their meals and successfully acquiring the Galgaida card, the group decided it was time to leave the Dopefo Milan, Cavo de Recuir. The atmosphere of the restaurant, bustling and lively, was left behind as they stepped out into the open air of Antakiba. However, as soon as they exited the establishment, a subtle shift occurred in Haruto's demeanor. His eyebrows furrowed ever so slightly, a crease forming on his forehead as a sense of unease washed over him. His senses, finely honed and alert, picked up a lethal presence in the vicinity. It didn't take him long to locate the source, a man in a red t-shirt, seemingly unaware of the grave danger he was in. Haruto's gaze locked onto the individual, his eyes narrowing as he detected the malicious Nen lurking within, threatening to wreak havoc. Upon detecting the malicious Nen within the man, Haruto acted with a blend of swift decisiveness and meticulous care. He extended his own aura, meticulously crafting an invisible barrier around a Nen bomb nestled within the man's being. The formation of the barrier was a process akin to weaving an intricate tapestry, where each thread of Nen was laid with precision. It was a ballet of control and focus, as he methodically neutralized the sinister energy, rendering it harmless without the slightest tremor of alarm. The onlookers, unaware of the deadly dance of energies, continued with their mundane affairs. It was a silent, unseen victory against the lurking menace. As Haruto withdrew his Nen, the simplicity of his action belied the complex artistry of his skill. The man, oblivious to the life-threatening situation he had just been in, felt a sudden gurgle in his stomach. He paused, burped loudly, and then, with a slightly puzzled expression, continued on his way, utterly unaware of how close he had come to death's door. Haruto, what just happened? Canary's voice, laced with concern, broke through his concentration. She had noticed the sudden change in him, the intensity of his focus. There was an N-bomb inside that man. It was set to explode, Haruto explained calmly, his voice steady as he turned to face the group. I managed to neutralize it. An N-bomb? Komugi echoed, her eyes wide with surprise. But why? And how? Haruto grinned, his smile wild, his eyes predatory. Must be the bomber we heard, he remarked, the thrill of the hunt evident in his voice. He then turned his attention to Killua, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio, cautioning them, be careful. Don't let anyone touch you. The four nodded in understanding and bowed slightly, showing their respect before making their exit. Watching them leave, Haruto's eyes didn't miss a single detail of their surroundings. His keen senses were alert, searching for any other potential threats. Canary, standing close to him, was visibly impressed by his ability to handle the situation so swiftly. You handled that brilliantly, she complimented, her tone sincere. Haruto merely shrugged, his expression turning thoughtful. It's just part of the game, he mused aloud, his gaze now scanning the bustling streets of Antakiba. Phaeton leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips. You always had a knack for this kind of thing, he remarked casually, his tone laced with a hint of pride. Finks, on the other hand, seemed more interested in the potential fight that could ensue. Think the bomber will come after us? He asked, his voice filled with anticipation. Hopefully, Haruto replied, his voice calm but excited. Chapter 119. Bathed in the silver glow of a full moon, the forest was a quiet tableau of shadows and whispers. The canopy above rustled softly in the gentle night breeze, a symphony of leaves playing to the nocturnal audience. Haruto and his companions moved leisurely through this moonlit scene, a casual fluidity in their steps that spoke of confidence and the comfort of familiar company. As they progressed, the trees began to thin, giving way to a clearing. It was there that the silence of the night was broken by the sudden appearance of ninjas, materializing from the shadows as if woven from the night itself. Their entrance was swift, a practiced stealth that was both impressive and unnerving. As they were walking in the forest, the air was still, the only sound the crunch of leaves underfoot. The calm was suddenly sliced by the sharp emergence of figures dressed in the blacks and blues of the night. A group of ninjas stood before them, the one at the lead with a countenance marred by pain and urgency. We need all your clothes for the epidemic in our village, the lead ninja implored. His voice carried a mix of desperation and demand, please or our people will all die. Komugi's eyes softened, the moonlight catching the new polish of her character, the nurturing white of her attire gleaming with an almost maternal glow. We must help them, Haruto, she said, her voice a whisper but her intent clear as crystal. Canary scoffed, her eyes narrowing at the absurd request. The idea of stripping down to nothing for these NPCs was ludicrous, and the thought of exposing Haruto to the cold, unforgiving eyes of the night was unacceptable. Her stance became rigid, a silent testament to her refusal to comply. Komugi, on the other hand, clutched her cloak close, her gaze flitting between her friends and the desperate ninjas. But, if we don't help them, what will become of their village? She questioned, the moonlight casting a serene halo around her. Haruto looked at Komugi, his gaze steady. This is a quest in this game. They probably ask random things and we happened to be asked for our clothes. They won't be hurt or die. His voice was even, betraying none of his growing irritation. Komugi's eyes were wide with worry, reflecting the moonlight. But Haruto, what if this is true? What if it's not just a quest and they really need our help? She glanced at the ninjas, her hands fidgeting with the end of her cloak. Canary crossed her arms, a look of disbelief painting her sharp features. You can't be serious, Komugi. These are NPCs, they run on code, not kindness. She stepped closer to Haruto, her stance protective. Phaeton, quiet until now, leaned against a tree, his eyes scanning the shadows. This is foolishness, he muttered, his words slicing through the tension. We move on. Finks shrugged, his interest clearly elsewhere. I'm with Phaeton. Let's not waste time. But Komugi started, only to be cut off by Haruto. "Look, Komugi," Haruto said, his tone firm but patient, "you're kind-hearted, and that's great. But this isn't real. It's a distraction, and it's not one we need right now." Komugi looked down, torn between her heart and her trust in Haruto. Haruto sighed and turned to the lead ninja, speaking directly. "We're not giving you our clothes. That's final." The ninja's face fell, and then, as if on cue, they vanished into the night, leaving as suddenly as they had appeared. Komugi's shoulders slumped. "I just wanted to." "I know," Haruto said softly, "but we have bigger things to focus on." Canary reached out, gently touching Komugi's shoulder. "Hey, you have a big heart. That's a rare thing." Continuing the path, the group soon stumbled upon creatures local to the island. The sight of monsters roaming the forest floor might have unnerved any common traveler, but to Haruto and his companions, they were but a mild diversion. The first they encountered were the Cyclops, massive one-eyed brutes who seemed less interested in the moon's beauty and more in swinging their hefty clubs at intruders. But these giants were no match for the team's prowess. Haruto watched them lumber closer, then turned to Komugi. "Think you can take them on?" he asked, an encouraging smile tugging at his lips. Komugi hesitated. "I can try. But they're so big," she said, eyes wide as she surveyed the towering figures. "Size isn't everything," Canary chimed in, her hand resting on her weapon. "Remember what Haruto taught you. Use their size against them." Phaeton, leaning casually against a tree, was already bored with the conversation. "Just hit them in the eye, they'll drop like flies," he interjected flatly. Finks merely shrugged, as if the presence of monsters was hardly worth his attention. Haruto nodded at Komugi. "Go on, focus your nen, and remember your training." With a deep breath, Komugi stepped forward, her earlier doubt replaced by determination. "Okay, I can do this," she affirmed, more to herself than anyone else. As she approached, the Cyclops roared, the sound echoing through the trees. Haruto and the others watched, ready to intervene if necessary, but keen to let Komugi test her skills. Komugi squared her shoulders as the Cyclops loomed over her, a towering colossus of muscle and menace. The beast swung its club, a massive tree trunk whittled down to a bludgeon, but Komugi was already moving, dancing aside with a grace that belied her inexperience in combat. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, darted across the clearing, locking onto her friends for a fraction of a second before returning to the task at hand. She recalled the countless hours spent over the Gunji board, where she commanded legions of pieces in silent wars. Now, she was both the general and the soldier, her body a pawn against these flesh and blood titans. The Cyclops, frustrated by her agility, roared and swung wildly. Komugi took advantage of the opening, ducking low and springing up behind it. She knew she couldn't match its strength, but like a seasoned general, she could outmaneuver it. Chapter 120. Canary watched, tense, her hands itching to draw her weapon and join the fray, but she restrained herself. This was Komugi's battle to fight. Phaeton leaned back, his eyes tracking Komugi with a faint hint of interest. "Not bad for a strategist," he remarked, his voice barely louder than the rustling leaves. Finks gave a rare nod of approval, silently acknowledging Komugi's tactics. The moonlight threw his features into sharp relief, casting him as an impassive spectator to the unfolding drama. Komugi spotted her chance when the Cyclops stumbled, its own momentum becoming its downfall. She darted forward, quick as a flash, her hand striking the giant's knee. As it bellowed in surprise, she used its club as a platform, propelling herself upwards. The giant's single eye widened as Komugi, tiny in comparison, landed a precise hit to its vulnerable spot. The Cyclops swayed and then, with a shimmering wave of energy, it transformed into a card that fluttered to the ground. The clearing was quiet for a heartbeat, and then erupted with the growls and snarls of more Cyclopes, their ire drawn by the fall of their kin. Haruto's eyes gleamed with approval as Komugi faced the oncoming challenge, her fear forgotten, replaced by a rising tide of adrenaline. She didn't need words or tears, her confidence swelled with every breath. every heartbeat. As the next Cyclops charged, Komugi's thoughts were clear and focused, the forest around her fading away until there was nothing but the enemy in the fight. The beast's club swung down in a deadly arc, but Komugi was already moving, sliding between its legs. She reached up, a hand aiming for the eye, her movements a dance of shadows in the silver light. The Cyclops roared, swinging blindly as it tried to catch the nimble thorn in its side. Komugi didn't relent, using the terrain to her advantage. She darted around the trees, leading the Cyclops in a deadly chase. It was Gunji brought to life, with her as the mastermind, the pieces, and the board. A bubble horse, startled by the commotion, galloped past, its red and white bubbles bursting in pops that masked Komugi's movements. She seized the moment, the cacophony providing cover as she sprinted towards the distracted Cyclops. Another hit, another transformation. The cards piled at her feet, trophies of her cunning and agility. The clearing was now alive with the forest's nocturnal creatures, drawn by the commotion. A radio rat skittered past, manipulating a fallen branch to create a diversion. The melanin lizard watched, its vast bulk a silent testament to the dangers lurking in the shadows. Komugi paid them no heed, her gaze was locked on her prey. As the final Cyclops fell, the clearing fell silent once more. Komugi stood alone amidst the chaos she wrought, her chest heaving with exertion, her eyes burning with triumph. After Komugi's victorious battle, the peculiar quintet meandered through Greed Island, which, to their seasoned senses, felt as perilous as a playground. For Haruto, the game served as a field study, the nen play was his textbook, and the island itself, a sort of open-air laboratory. It wasn't all work, though. He had a holiday to enjoy, a shared respite with Komugi and Canary, and even Phaeton and Finks seemed to appreciate the break from their usual escapades. Days blended into weeks, and their journey across the island unfolded with a leisurely pace. Their adventures led them to II, the city of love, a place seemingly lifted from the pages of a storybook, painted with all the tropes of romance. As they stepped into II, the bustle parted around them like waves around a steady ship. He cast a brief glance upwards at the heart-shaped balloon floating above, an unsubtle symbol of the city's theme. Phaeton, who'd known Haruto since he was but a swaddled mystery, watched the corners of the city with a protective gaze. He nudged Haruto and muttered, "This place reeks of sugar." Finks's laughter rumbled from his chest. It's good camouflage for the sour-faced. Canary walked close to Haruto, her hand brushing his with a familiarity that spoke volumes of their closeness, her smile blossoming like the rarest of flowers, reserved for moments out of sight from her usual stoicism. Komugi, ever the ray of sunlight, clasped her hands with delight. "Oh, look! It's just like in the games." Her eyes gleamed, reflecting the pinkish hue that seemed to tint everything in II. In the heart of II, the city seemed to be having a little joke at Phaeton and Finks's expense. The pinkish glow that suffused the streets caught on their hardened faces, softening them despite their stern attempts to remain stoic. "Careful, Phaeton," Finks ribbed, nudging him as a duo of giggling characters passed by, dressed in mascot costumes that were the epitome of affection, a pair of swans, beaks nearly touching. "You might just smile and shatter the illusion." Phaeton scowled, turning away, but not before a group of children, waving heart-shaped balloons, scampered up to him. The boldest, a girl with ribbons dancing in her hair, thrust a balloon towards him. "For you, Mr. Scary Face, to make you happy." His hand twitched, and to everyone's surprise, Phaeton took the balloon, his expression unfathomable. Finks chuckled, a sound of genuine amusement, but his laughter died as a child approached him too, offering a balloon with a sparkle in his eyes. "For you, Mr. Laugh-A-Lot," the child declared. Taking the string, Finks muttered something inaudible, cheeks tinging with an uncharacteristic warmth. They continued their walk, their notorious reputations unnoticed in this land of make-believe love. Shopkeepers hawked their wares, couples ambled by, lost in their worlds, and the air thrummed with the light-hearted essence of the city. A street performer, clad in flowing garb that shimmered like the stars, caught sight of the group. She beamed, approaching Phaeton with a confidence that spoke of someone used to the attention her beauty commanded. "Sir, a moment of your time?" Phaeton paused, the look in his eyes usually enough to send people scurrying. But the performer was undeterred, reaching out to place a crown woven from flowers atop his head. Every king needs his crown, even one who hides his heart. Chapter 121. Phaeton stood rigid, the contrast of his dark aura and the delicate crown comedic to any onlooker. Finks didn't hold back, his laughter booming through the streets. Before Phaeton could make a retort, the performer whisked Finks into the scene, draping a scarf around his neck, the color of which matched the blush now firmly planted on his cheeks. And for the jovial one, a splash of love to wear. Haruto observed quietly, his own amusement clear in the slight quirk of his lips. Canary's hand found his again, her laughter mingled with the sounds of the city. Komugi clapped her hands, enchanted by the spectacle. The sun began to dip, casting the city in a golden glow that seemed to heighten the ambience. At a quaint little cafe, the quintet settled into a corner, the floral crown now resting on the table, tokens of their day's journey. As they sipped on drinks, Finks glanced at Phaeton. "Admit it, you enjoyed the attention." "Do not test me," Phaeton replied, but the harshness was gone, replaced with a begrudging resignation. At least those children were genuine. This city. It's like a bad joke. "But you're keeping the balloon," Finks pointed out, smirking. Phaeton's eyes narrowed, but he didn't let go of the string. "And you," Phaeton shot back, "wearing that scarf like it's some trophy." Finks touched the fabric around his neck, his expression softening. "Maybe it is. Maybe it's nice, for once, not to be the toughest in the room." Haruto decided the course of their next action. "We will stay here for a while. Finks, find us a hotel." Finks nodded and, in a gesture that blended both irony and a strange newfound fondness for the city's whimsy, threw the scarf dramatically over his neck as he walked away. His usual swagger turned into a performance for the passers-by. Phaeton watched him go, then turned to Haruto, his eyes a mix of question and challenge. "Why?" The rasp in his voice was more pronounced than usual, a clear sign of his perplexity. Haruto's lips curled into a smile, light and unburdened. "It seems fun." A soft curse escaped Phaeton, meant only for the ears of those who understood the depth of his character. Canary's and Komugi's giggles formed a delicate counterpoint to his gruffness. In the whimsical streets of II, the fading sunlight wrapped its golden fingers around everything, softening the edges of the day into a warm, dreamy haze. It was the sort of place where romance was not just in the air but seemed to be the very air one breathed. Phaeton, however, sat at the quaint cafe with a scowl that could curdle milk, looking particularly out of place against the backdrop of giggling couples and troubadours singing ballads of love. A rustling sound approached, the kind that only the flutter of light fabric could make. It was a young woman, one of II's many hopeful romantics, her gaze locked onto Phaeton's brooding figure. Her approach was cautious yet determined, as if she were approaching a wild animal rather than a man. "Excuse me, sir," she began, her voice a soft melody that contrasted with the quiet intensity of the cafe's corner. "Could I trouble you for a moment of your time?" Phaeton lifted his gaze, the dark pools of his eyes holding the same sharpness as a sword's edge. "What do you want?" he asked, his words short, carrying the weight of annoyance. The woman flinched slightly but recovered with a smile, one that seemed practiced, meant to disarm. "I saw you from across the square," she said, "and I couldn't help but notice that you seem to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." Phaeton's scowl deepened. "Your point?" Unruffled, she continued, "I thought maybe I could lighten your burden. They say a problem shared is a problem halved." The table held its breath, a silent audience to the exchange. Haruto watched with a barely perceptible tilt of his head, the corner of his mouth twitching in amusement. Finks, having returned from his hotel search, leaned against a nearby wall, a sly grin etching across his features, clearly enjoying the scene unfolding before him. "I don't share," Phaeton replied curtly, almost a growl, but he made no move to shoo her away. With the grace of a ballet dancer, the woman took the seat opposite him, her skirt billowing gently. Everyone has something to share, she insisted. Even a man with a crown of flowers. Phaeton's hand subconsciously touched the floral crown that now lay on the table, a stark reminder of his earlier encounter. That, he said, pointing at the crown, was a mistake. But a beautiful mistake, don't you think? She pressed on, undeterred by his frostiness. Canary's laughter, light and carefree, filled the space between them, and even Komugi leaned in with a curious sparkle in her eyes. This is just like the stories, Komugi whispered to Canary, her voice barely containing her excitement. The woman leaned forward, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. I believe that sometimes, it's the unexpected moments, the ones we think are mistakes, that bring us the most joy. Phaeton considered her, his expression unchanging. And what would you know of my joy? Her smile never waned. I'd like to find out, if you'd let me. The line was so cliched, so utterly predictable in its romantic intent, that under any other sky, it might have made Phaeton snort in derision. Yet, here in II, it hung between them, as substantial as the sweet-scented air. Finks chuckled from his spot by the wall, unable to resist commenting, looks like you've got an admirer, Phaeton. Phaeton shot him a glare that could peel paint, but the woman seemed to find his friend's teasing endearing. I admire anyone who can carry such strength and solitude, she said earnestly. Phaeton opened his mouth, likely to deliver a sharp retort, but Haruto's voice cut through, calm and smooth. Phaeton, why not indulge in the city's game? You may find some value in it. The group turned their attention to Haruto, who, until now, had been a silent observer, his eyes reflecting a mirth that was uncharacteristic but fitting in the strange tableau of the City of Love. Phaeton looked at the woman, then at the expectant faces of his companions, and let out a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of surrender. Fine, he said, turning back to the woman. You have my attention. For now. Finks settled into a chair near Haruto, his gaze shifting between the ongoing spectacle and his companions, a sly grin playing upon his lips. The scene had all the hallmarks of those romantic simulation games that line the shelves of II's arcade, the kind where every choice led you deeper into a heart-spun narrative. Could this place be any more cliché? Finks commented, the tease clear in his voice as he leaned back, watching the encounter between Phaeton and the persistent local woman. It's like we've stepped into one of those cheesy dating sims. Phaeton grunted, his usual impatience for such folly surprisingly absent, his gaze lingering a tad longer on the woman than his gruff exterior suggested. It's like being trapped in a bad dream, he replied, though the lightness of his tone belied his words. And that's a wrap, hunters. Another awesome Hunter-x-Hunter fanfic in the books. Big shout out to the original author, their info's in the description, so go show them some love for this masterpiece. Also just a note, the author dropped this fanfic, so there won't be any more chapters. If you're new here and love HxH as much as I do, drop a like, maybe say hi in the comments and hit that sub button to officially become a hunter. Your support keeps this channel alive and honestly motivates me more than you know. Oh, and don't forget to check the community tab, I actually post stuff there, not just sub-begging like certain audiobook channels. Embarrassed smiley face emoji. That's it for now. Peace out, and love you all, red heart emoji.